What's going on? This is the OG Kickoff, a Double Down and Next Round media production. I am Connor O'Gara. Will, I've always said that we're a football country, not a football country. I think Monday confirmed that.
Yeah, it was rough, man. That was really rough. I feel like I have fallen for the longest con in the American experience, which is I've watched more World Cup this year than maybe the rest of them combined, just because of the time. There's so much of it that's in Atlanta. And, seeing everybody come out of the back end of it and be like, well, of course, our academy system is the issue. Like, I saw Comrade Clay Travis talking about how things cost too much money and capitalism is bad. And in Europe, they have things figured out because the players generate the revenue instead of paying into it. So, yeah, we've just done the whole it's Charlie Brown the football all over again, bro.
Bigger con, U.S. men's national team or June lad of the week, Matt Miller? Which one?
Man, that's tough. That's tough.
If you haven't seen that story on Awful Announcing, just Google it. Needless to say, cold taked on that one, lad of the week. Former friend of the show, Matt Miller. Yikes. Anyway.
But speaking of lads of the week, we got Ben Garrett this week.
Yeah, Ben's a lad. Yeah, another former lad of the week. I don't know that we've gone that direction before of lad of the week before guest on this show, but we did that with Ben. Great conversation talking all things Ole Miss. If you remember, Ben was very much part of the Lane craziness with the viral interaction that happened on the sideline of the Egg Bowl. So we talked about that. We talked about all the crazy things that have happened in Oxford over the course of the last 7 months or so. So we will do that. And then our actual topical lad of the week. But first, Will, I thought this would be a great time of year to do the thing that everybody's doing, seemingly, SEC coach rankings. We didn't do this last year, did we? Because we did hot seat index for SEC coaches, but I don't believe we did an official SEC coach ranking, if I'm not mistaken.
Because we're some haters. And obviously we predicted Brian Kelly would get fired last year. No, totally. I mean, I think that with this many coaches and this many storylines, that's the thing, is the amount of new coaches is really what struck me here. How it's like, would you rather have the mystery box or the thing that you know what it is?
It's a great question. And that's probably speaks a little bit more to each specific situation of why the unknown is often more attractive than the known. And I don't know that these rankings will necessarily reflect that, but nonetheless, it makes it really difficult. So when we do the graphic and stuff like that, maybe you'll end up only seeing the top 10 or something. And I wouldn't get overly upset about that. If your coach isn't necessarily in the top 10, I don't know that you want to be discussing SEC coach rankings anyways. But nonetheless, it is a very popular time of year to be doing these rankings. I have been doing bi-weekly rankings on all things SEC for TexAgs. That's going to be something that doing in the off season, and then I'll be doing a weekly SEC column for TexAgs. So be on the lookout for that. And already done SEC quarterbacks, SEC power rankings, and just most recently did SEC coaches. So I thought, let's turn this one into a pod and we can make for a good discussion. So we each did our own rankings here, and I think it'll be fascinating to see where our biggest discrepancies are right now, because I think there is a lot of room for interpretation. And I'm going to say this at the top, along the lines of what you're talking about before with the 6 new. It's not technically sex. It's not technically 6 SEC new coaches. Let me start that one over for the kids.
Bobby Petrino did not get hired, actually.
It's not 6 new SEC coaches, okay? Because Lane is technically not new, and Pete Golding was promoted last year, but it's 6 SEC coaches in new spots. That's how we're going to say this. And it's more of a crapshoot. So I don't view this as some sort of a projection. I view it as like how we feel about these coaches based on what we know about them right now, okay? And I don't just hit the wins column on stats reference and go, oh, let's just go by that, because if we were doing that and you just want to default completely to past accomplishments, you're ranking Dabo Sweeney ahead of Kurt Cignetti. If you want to do that, that's on you. That's not on me. Well, let's do it this way. I want you to share your 16 through 1, and then I'll go, and then we'll kind of go on the back end here and get into some of these discussion points. Does that work?
Yes. God, I love that you're starting here, because this guy I have at 16, I was just staring at. I can't believe I think this guy's the worst coach in the SEC, but I do. So quickly, I'm going to run through my criteria here. Winning real things that matter, right? So like participating in conference championship games, winning the conference, participating in the winning playoff games. So that's part of it.
Hold on. What about winning the press conference? Does that count at all or no?
That could negatively affect some people, as we've seen. But I think
what about winning on social media? Does that count?
That also could affect some people negatively.
Okay.
I see what you're trying to do. Anyway, so okay. Then next is going to be your ranked wins. So who have you beat? Kind of like big games. Can we trust you? That's going to hurt some certain coaches, help some other ones. And then have you ever been dog water? And that one really matters to me. You know, if you're a guy that has just been dog water for a period of time, I'm going to hold that against you, unfortunately. And so that's more or less my criteria. Does that make sense?
Define dog water.
Like you're bad. Like you're like fighting for a bowl game. It's like, what's this guy doing? We're questioning the direction of our program, and it's not your one or two.
The bowl has been sitting out for a few days. The water hasn't been changed. There's that one random piece of food that's somehow still in there, and your dog's just been lapping at it for a little bit. And you look at that water and go, that's not something I would ever subject myself to. Okay, I get what dog water is.
Yes, exactly. So without further ado, let's start with number 16 here. Teased it a little bit. Connor, I think the worst coach in the SEC is Jeff Lebby.
Okay, we will dig into that more. Continue.
Okay, so you want me to just go numerically?
Yeah, just go 16 through 1. Yeah, okay, 16
boom.
through 1.
15, Ryan Silverfield. 14, Will Stein. 13, Alex Golesh. 12, Drink. 11,
Whoa.
Beamer.
Interesting.
You got to beat somebody.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so 12 is Drink. 11 is Beamer. 10, Jon Sumrall. That's going to be interesting. 9, Clark Lee. 8, Pete Golding. If you guys think I'm an LSU homer after this specific podcast, I'm never going to reach you. Number 7, Mike Elko. Number 6, Brent Venables. Number 5, Josh Heupel. Number 4, Lane Kiffin. Number 3, Steve Sarkisian. Number 2, Kalen DeBoer. Number 1, Kirby Smart.
Wow. Okay, we have more disagreements in the back half than we do in the front half, and that surprised me. I did not think it would go that way. I'm usually bad at predicting how you and I are going to align on specific topics like this, so that's maybe not a surprise. Okay, at 16, I have Will Stein. At 15, Ryan Silverfield. 14, Jeff Lebby. 13, Alex Golesh. 12, Jon Sumrall. 11, Pete Golding. 10, Shane Beamer. 9, Brent Venables. 8, Eli Drinkwitz. 7, Clark Lee. 6, Josh Heupel. 5, Mike Elko. 4, Lane Kiffin. 3, Steve Sarkisian. 2, Kalen DeBoer. And 1, Kirby Smart. Okay, lots of takeaways here. Let's start at the very, very back end here. I ranked Will Stein at 16 because he's the only guy in this list who has never coached a game. And I didn't want to do the thing where I assume that just because someone is a really good coordinator, they're automatically going to figure out certain things as a head coach. And I just think there are too many examples of elite coordinators who struggle with head coaching elements. And I don't want to assume that he's already better than others in that way. He is the safest bet on this list to rise, probably. But that's my main logic for it. It's more so just, what does it look like when you're actually running a program? Everybody else has run a program before. So that's why I feel like it's fair at least to start him at 16. You did not have him at 16. You already have him ranked ahead of 2 guys.
I do. And the reason he's the top of the mystery box list to me, because he could be good. That's the thing. There are guys that I know I wouldn't exactly want to have them as my head coach. It's like, what's he going to do? You know, not beat an SEC team at home for a couple of years? Like, oh, how bad could it be? Right. And so like, that's the thing, is that I think Will Stein is the kind of hire you want at a place like Kentucky, that you want to get the boys going. You know, you want to get like this high flying offense, and maybe give us some points here and there, but like some of the hires they've made. So it's not like he's doing boneheaded things. So as high as I could be on a guy that, you're right, has not actually like stepped to the press conference, he would be a head coach before this. But I'm just bullish on him. Yeah.
Yeah. So you had Lebby dead last, and I struggle with him too. I have him ranked just behind Alex Golesh, both of whom are former Heupel disciples, which is just a fun thing to say, because Golesh took Lebby's job at UCF after Lebby left for Ole Miss. But Golesh already has done the rebuild, and he's got just as many SEC wins as Lebby. So that's worth keeping in mind too, even though Golesh obviously has not been an SEC head coach yet. I think if I'm just looking at those two specifically, I think Golesh gives you a better chance of winning a game tomorrow than Lebby. I've watched a lot of Golesh at USF, and trust me, like when I say the feeling of close game late, we saw the side by side last year. Like Lebby has that opportunity to win at Florida, can't. Golesh has that opportunity to win at Florida, does, and is able to close out that game. So like if you're telling me right now that Lebby's better than Golesh, I can't get there. If Lebby hasn't risen several spots above 14 on this list at season's end, I'm not saying that definitively means he's gone. I do think a public perception will be horrible, and he will have a lot of people who will want him gone. Whether or not that means he gets fired, TBD on that. But I think I'm the highest on him by having it at 14. It's maybe someone has him at like 13 or something, but like even that, I don't know how you can get there at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. So you're talking about Golesh there at 13? Or you're talking about
I Golesh at 13 as well, but like just for the Lebby part of this,
yeah.
I don't know how much different it would be if they had won that bowl game to be able to get to 6 wins. I don't know how much that changes it, but again, as we talk about with him, the biggest thing he's got to show this year is just the late game miscues. It cannot be there. It cannot be like, oh my God, Kamario Taylor was so fun to watch for 3.5 quarters, and then in the last 6 minutes, it felt like his head coach let him down. If that's the type of tune that Mississippi State is singing this year, yeek, not enough cowbell to drown out that noise.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is like, how does that 5-6 win season look? You know, there are situations where Golesh could win the right 5 or 6 games, and you're going, wow, what a fun brand of football. We don't have 3 play callers. Like, well, we got some stuff to figure out, but we'll figure it out. And that's why, you know, I put him at the bottom behind kind of the mystery box of, gosh, this is rough when I say it like this. I mean, I have Golesh, Stein, Silverfield, Lebby, because those guys might win an SEC game in the first couple of years. And that's the best way I can say it. Because to your point, when you lose the Texas game the way that he did, it's inexplicable for me to imagine someone else doing that. So like until I see it, it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, and Silverfield, by the way, for Arkansas fans saying, talk about our guy. He's probably going to be bottom 3 on every single list just because he took over a program that already was in a really good situation with Memphis. I knock him a little bit, having not been to a conference championship in the American at a time when your top 4 teams left. And to me, that's a little bit troubling. It's not to say it's going to fail at Arkansas, but just in terms of like body of work, what you came in with, I think everybody saw that it felt like there was a clear pecking order with those coaches coming out of the American, and he was last on it of the guys who got an SEC job. So like, that's kind of where I'm at with him and why he's, you know, only at 15. Okay. We got to talk Sumrall. Let's talk Sumrall and Golding here. I had Sumrall at 12 and Golding at 11. You were much higher on Golding. So let's maybe start with Sumrall.
I'm higher on both of these guys.
Yeah.
Sumrall at 10 and Golding at 8.
I knew I was going to be low on the two of them. And by the way, I think there are some who would say like, oh, in a vacuum, who would you take right now, Jon Sumrall over or Pete Golding? And if they're both on the open market, it's probably Jon Sumrall. So like I'm agreeing to that to a certain extent. We also did see the Ole Miss situation play out the way that it did with Golding getting that job and then doing good things with it. But we saw those two coaches face against each other in a playoff scenario in which obviously that's not entirely Golding's doing, but he does get credit for having a really good game plan amidst a lot of distractions and dominating a lesser talented team. That's not the end all be all, but it is at least something. I think Sumrall deserves to be the clear, like, of the mystery box guys, of the moving up a level guys, I think he's the one, right? Just because conference title in all 4 years at a group of 5 program, 2 different group of 5 programs with Troy and his time at Tulane as well. And doing that at like this time right now with the way roster retention works, that matters. Okay. No, you haven't done it in the SEC. That is still a noteworthy accomplishment. And it's perhaps, I mean, we're saying it's more noteworthy than some current SEC head coaches having done that. And you ranked him ahead of a lot. So like, what was the thing for you with Sumrall that made you go, I think he's like closer to middle of the pack in the SEC before he's even coached a game?
Yeah, I talked about kind of winning the big games and what is our goal, right? To I mean, make the playoff. You could take Lane Kiffin and Pete Golding and say they share one playoff team. That's fine. They're tied with Jon Sumrall combined in terms of, and again, you could talk about their route, all that different stuff. I get it. But doing in the modern era of college football, building a program at kind of a mid-major like Tulane and a place, it's in New Orleans, it's like a private school. It's not like they're not going to be like even like a Houston that's just like where you have this big football history. You got to really sell. You got to bring a little bit of like Ted Lasso energy in there and just make the guys believe. And so I think that it's easier for me to project that. You could also look at, and this isn't the be all end all, obviously, but you could look at the interest, Adam, that, it was kind of 1A and 1B with him and Lane Kiffin, and the Lane stuff got so messy that we focused on that. But it was like everybody wanted Sumrall as soon as the Lane Kiffin domino dropped, and that's because he's well regarded for his ability to do just that, to basically turn things around, and that's exactly what Florida needs right now.
Yeah, and I think what he did getting Darian Mensah and Jake Retzloff coming off of the ugly breakup at BYU, he gets to camp super late, and they still get the group of 5 bid. All right, I guess I shouldn't say the group of 5 bid. They still get a playoff bid. You get what I'm saying? I think to me that's really impressive, and his ability to evaluate on that side of the ball is going to be important. It's going to be very important at that job at Florida. And so far, obviously, he's done really well. I don't know how much I elevate him just because I like the personnel moves and I think he's got the right mindset for the job. It's significant, but I think that he is an obvious candidate to rise on this list. But yeah, I'm not willing to say like, oh, he's a top half coach in the SEC before he's ever coached a game in the SEC. So I couldn't quite get there. You, however, have Golding at 8. I think you're going to be the highest on Golding of anyone, and I think he might be the toughest guy to rank of anyone.
Yes, and guys, I've been very consistent on this. I think that Pete Golding for the 2026 season is going to be a good head coach. I think beyond that remains to be seen. That's the thing. That's the little bit of the mystery box there is the farther we get away from a team that was ultimately built by guys that he didn't hire, who were the guys that he hired? And we're going to talk about that with Ben Garrett as far as he's hitting high school more. His philosophy is completely different from Lane's. That's fine. He's done really well in the portal. Ole Miss has like more money now. I get that. But I think for the 2026 season, bringing back your quarterback, bringing back a similar offense, being the DC, so you're kind of bringing back your DC as well, right? They just have such continuity. And again, have they been dog water? No, they beat Georgia. They won a playoff game against Jon Sumrall, who I like a lot. And then they narrowly lost to Miami, who is just like this unstoppable team. And so that being said, if I haven't seen you struggle, I've only seen you beat Kirby Smart. It's really hard for me to go, yeah, you're bringing back a lot. Yeah, you're going to stink this year,
It has to count for something. It has to. I mean, beating Kirby Smart, doing so in an all or nothing type game where it catch him off guard. There's no way. Ole Miss and Georgia had an instant classic in that first matchup. And you could tell me that Trinidad was the reason that they won that game. Yeah, sure. He probably was. And the 3 miraculous plays he made in that game, I think you could point to and say that was the difference. And it wasn't necessarily Pete Golding's defense that stymied Georgia, although they did have a really nice stretch there when Gunnar Stockton may or may not have been, but definitely was concussed, in which Georgia's offense was just ineffective in every possible way. I think that matters. And if we're going to talk about some of these coaches who have yet to win big time games and how tough it is to check that box, Pete Golding has already done that for you. It's ironic that he's working backwards. And some of the guys that I've ranked ahead of him, he needs to show he can do that. He needs to show that he can do Eli Drinkwitz type things, or Mike Elko type things, Josh Heupel type things. That will obviously play out this year. This year's going to be huge for his ranking. He's got probably as much volatility as anyone on this list. And if they go 7-5 or something like that, and they do hit that under on the regular season over under, he's falling several spots, like not just from 8 for you, but from 10 for me. Like he would fall into that like 13 category all of a sudden. And we'd be like, well, what has he really done? Like if Ole Miss has its worst season since 2020, right? Like that would be grounds for Pete Golding dropping significantly as what could be a preseason top 10 team with the game's most important position kind of figured out. I think that would have to. I think that would have to ding him significantly, even though we have yet to see anything to make us think he is bad at this.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's going to swing wildly, right? Because again, if all we have is good tape to judge you on, can't invent bad tape because I'm a hater, you know. And again, I think there'll be more good tape in 2026. But that's why, you know, the Kirby Smarts, the Nick Sabans, regrettably, folks, the Dabos, you know, doing it year after year after year, where it's like, okay, you didn't just have this hot run. You didn't just have this quarterback. Like, that's where you can really cement your legacy and submit your ranking for me, because now it's almost like an incumbent, like, what's it called? Head coach elect number 8. It's like, okay, one season could swing you all the way down to hot seat. If you essentially waste the Trinidad year, which I don't even think is in the cards here, but if you reload and you're looking around like, hey, okay, we're way far removed from this playoff team.
There is something that I'm wondering about with Ole Miss this year. Haven't brought this stat up until this morning, and I looked this up because I keep envisioning this scenario, and this is bad. I don't project injury or do anything like that. I'm a little worried about Kewan Lacey. I'm a little worried. Like, the more I think about the workload that he took on last year, the amount of games that he played, the type of running style that he has, I'm a little worried. So I looked this up, and I'm like, when was the last time that a running back in the SEC returned to college after getting as many carries as he did? Well, do you know the answer to that?
Oh gosh, was it like Mark Ingram or something?
It's Herschel. All right.
Oh my God. Funny enough, I was thinking about guessing Kevin Smith, but it's not even him.
Yeah. And there was a Madre Hill, the Arkansas running back in 1995, had more carries, but tore his ACL in the SEC championship, then missed the next 2 seasons. So, like, in terms of the guy who actually, like, came back after having that many carries in the SEC and played football the next year, it's Herschel. Like, the dude just had more carries than anyone in the SEC since 2015 Derrick Henry. Okay. And, like, Derrick Henry goes to the NFL. Like, it's a different conversation when we're talking about, like, hey, you're returning to college, you're this decorated guy, and everybody is just going to load the box to try and stop you. It's different when you have a quarterback like Trinidad that you have to account for. So, like, I get it. I can't get that out of my mind. And I'm high on Ole Miss. You'll hear this conversation with Ben in which I continue to bang the drum that Ole Miss needs to be getting national respect. That can't be the thing, though. If you're Pete Golding and if you do encounter an issue like that, the issue can't just be, oh, our running back was a little bit banged up and it just didn't end up being the year that we hoped it would be. Everybody knows what he took on last year. And that can't be what you can't be putting all of your eggs into that basket. And you're not, because you have Trinidad. But I just keep that in mind as we talk about Ole Miss this year. Okay. All right.
Do they have like a clear established backup plan, or it's just like, we'll figure it out if we need to?
They do. They do. And look, Lane last year said, I'm not messing around with this. I know what it was like the year before. I found a guy that I'm going to trust, and I'm just going to ride this. Okay. Guy that's got fresh legs, who barely touched the football the previous year when he was at Mizzou, ironically enough. And we're just going to roll with this. And maybe that's a strategy that works this year. It was a strategy that worked last year. It worked really, really well. And Kewan Lacey was awesome at finishing games. I hope that dude still has everything left in the tank, but I do think about that workload. Okay. Well, Beamer and Venables, I had them side by side at 10 and 9 for a reason. You had Beamer where again?
I had Beamer. Let me scroll up here. I had Beamer pretty low. I had Beamer at 11.
Yeah. Okay. So we're pretty much in agreement. And you had Venables at where?
Venables. Let me scroll up again. Maybe I'm scrolling down. This is great radio. Let's see. Yeah, I have Venables higher. I have him at 6.
Okay. So you're definitely higher on Venables than I am. We're three spots apart on that one. But I put those two guys next to each other because I think they're the yo-yo coaches so far. Remarkable highs. I mean, Beamer has beaten 5 top 15 teams. You talk about like all the wins he's had as a double-digit dog. Venables beat 5 ranked foes last year, which that's the exact same amount that Lincoln Riley has in his entire time at USC, for those keeping track of things like that. But both coaches have yet to have consecutive 8-win seasons. You know, you can't always be the guy who thrives when people are doubting you. It's the biggest thing South Carolina fans want to see overcome. when your program gets a big time win, it can't always be, well, we were such significant underdogs, and man, does this feel good to catch this team by surprise. Eventually, you want to be favored in these games, and you want to take care of business, and you want to stay in the hunt. And there have been very few times in which South Carolina has felt like that. End of 2024, obviously being the biggest example. But I think, Will, the greatest challenge in this sport is succeeding after an 8-month offseason of people telling you how good you're going to be. Okay, said it before, I'll say it again. Venables had those 2 losing seasons when his teams had their 2 highest preseason rankings. That's an issue for him still, okay? And this team's going to get a high preseason ranking. And I think it's his best team yet, so he's got a chance to overcome that in year 5. Beamer had South Carolina's first preseason ranking in South Carolina since the last full season of Spurrier 2014. And then 4-8 happened. But here's what's promising, I think, for both coaches and why they could be on the higher end of this list next year, where they're both maybe in the top half of the SEC. They both continue to recruit at a really, really high level. Roster retention is a strength of theirs. Both are not necessarily offensive minds in a traditional sense, who have heavily invested into talented quarterbacks. I think Venables, for me, he will rise into the category that you currently have him in if Oklahoma gets back to the playoff this year. But I can't quite get there yet just because of the yo-yo factor.
So it's weird, right? Because I said that I value big wins, and that's why I have Venables so high. And I also was like, hey, you can't really be dog water. Well, a little bit of the prisoner of the moment, obviously, because we did this after last year, these two guys, to your point, are like flipped, right? But here's where I draw the distinction here. Brent Venables is a mastermind at defense. So, like, I know what the floor on this Oklahoma team is. It's that you have a quarterback who can't throw the football forward, and your defense is still like frustrating Texas for a half. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're still like, your defense has still got some NFL players that are hopefully going to help the Saints a lot, and your offense looks kind of broken because you have some injuries, but you have an identity, right? I think what makes Shane Beamer a little scary is that there's an inability to adjust within the context of a season when you hire a Mike Shula, that you can't say, actually, give me that, I'm going to fix this. You're just kind of stuck there. And I think that when you're in that situation, makes things a little bit harder. I think as like a leader of men, you know, Shane Beamer is awesome. I think he's a good recruiter. He gets guys bought in. There's a lot to like about him. But I think as it's determining your floor, like Brent Venables is probably what the preeminent defensive coordinator of this generation. Like Kirby Smart was probably a little bit before him. It was probably Kirby and then him.
I would agree with that. I think it's definitely fair.
He's a great football coach, no matter how you slice it. He might just be the best defensive coordinator ever. And maybe he just does that after Oklahoma if it doesn't work out. With Beamer, again, love the guy, just don't know what he exactly does on that end. But the one that I'm now looking at is Venables and Elko. For that same reason, right?
Yeah, and I would take Elko over Venables in a vacuum. And not to say I would take them. Like if you're just giving me go run the defense, I'm taking Brent Venables. If you're taking a guy to run a program, I would take Elko. I think Elko, I had him at 5. And I think there's a lot of room for interpretation in that like 5 to 8 type range in the SEC. I think one of the things that is so impressive with Elko is that he took over 2 situations that had really low expectations with Duke and A&M. Don't forget about the Duke part of this. Guy's 35-16 in 4 years as a power conference head coach, having rebuilt 2 power conference programs. If you had told anyone when A&M pays that historic buyout to Jimbo Fisher, hey, you know, by the time that A&M is playing in those 2 regular season finales against Texas, SEC championship bid's going to be up for grabs in both of them, and that they're going to be 12-4 in SEC play. And those are things that Elko has working in his favor. The recruiting rankings, take that for what it is. He certainly checked that box, and there's no doubt that he knows how to recruit talent. I think that he has done something that is really hard to do, which is succeed as a high level as a coordinator, which he did under Jimbo Fisher for those 4 years. And then they bottomed out the year that he went to Duke, and then come back and show as a head coach that you actually have more to it than just that. That's the part with Venables that I'm still wondering about. Like, I know that if you were just running a defense, you could sign up and do that tomorrow and haunt quarterbacks in this sport at a super, super high level, and I would never have to worry about that. Can you figure out all those other elements to it, though? Because that's been questioned at times so far at Oklahoma. I think it definitely has been. So that's why I give a little bit of more of the benefit of the doubt. I think it was a little bit more of a rebuild for Elko at A&M than it was for Venables at Oklahoma. And that's not to say Oklahoma fans, like I understand Lincoln Riley tried to take as much of what he could to Southern California. Okay, like I fully acknowledge that. It was going to be rough that first year. I get that. He still had those 2 losing seasons. Okay, like that still has to account for at least something. Okay, so I think they're similar in that way. But I think Elko has handled the head coaching duties better so far, given the circumstances, than Venables has.
Man, the more I stare at these two guys, I kind of want to flip them. But I will say this. This sounds insane. I mean, to me, this is a Rager's edge between Venables and Elko because, like I said, they are similar. They're great defensive minds. Could I imagine Elko having 2 kind of bad seasons like Venables? Not really, man. But that being said, this is going to sound so stupid, but just hear me out. When you know you're a bad team, your expectations are just like, okay. So even as a bad team, they bleep stomped Alabama at Oklahoma. And it was like, oh my God, that was something they were having a good season. This is just fine. Whereas there is nothing worse to me as a fan from my personal experience than like getting to the end of the season and being like, oh my God, we're going to appear in the SEC championship game. All we have to do is beat Texas. Not that Brent Venables can do that consistently either. That's what makes these guys so hard to pick between. But it's like, hey, all we have to do is like beat Texas. And then, okay, we got a home playoff game. Like that, the high of spending like 11, 12 weeks as like, oh my God, this could be the greatest Texas A&M team ever, going back to like 1939. And then you're just like, oh, wow, I talked a lot of crap online and I look silly now.
Yeah. I think that there are some who would say Elko has a Texas problem. Sample size is still really small. It's still really, really small. I think Texas played exceptionally well in that game last year and did stuff to A&M that they had probably gotten away with in certain games, and they couldn't on that stage. And Texas has those bragging rights. But like I'm not saying Elko's better than Sark or anything like that. And like I think Venables still has his issues within games. You still kind of wonder like, is he micromanaging the offense? Like is he always going to make that right hire at the offensive coordinator? Because we've seen what it looks like when he doesn't. Like I think they're both in similar spots though, having just lost home playoff games. Right? Like they're the first 2 coaches to do that. That's kind of a weird thing to process as a fan base because you're like, oh, it's really good. We got to host this awesome home playoff game. It was also really disappointing the way that it finished. And you left it feeling like, oh man, my coach isn't a big time coach, even though so far to their credit, like they're 2 years together in the SEC as head coaches. I think they've still done a lot of things really well.
You know what? Really quick, I think I'm going to flip these 2 because now I'm looking at, okay, what if I just took Bama out of this, which I know is a big deal. Like, I know it's a big deal, but those wins are doing like most of the Brent Venables lifting to put him above Elko. I still think he's right there, but I'm going to flip these 2. I'm going to move Elko up to 6 and Venables down to 7 because I'm going against my own logic here. If I'm saying you can't be dog water and then Venables has 2 bad seasons and Elko's 0.
Let's have the drink conversation. Speaking of dog water. Man, so that was my biggest stunner of hearing your rankings was you have drink at 12?
Yeah, right? It's like I hate to be this guy, but it's like, what are we doing here? Like, why are we doing this?
I had him at 8, and I thought you were gonna have him at like 6 or something like that. Okay, so we're gonna get Mizzou fans that are really, really upset by this, and people that look at Mizzou and go, "Oh, you guys are way too low on him." I feel like I've defended him when it comes to his name being thrown around for big time vacancies. Like when Hester would come on and say, like, I think Drink would be great at LSU. And I was kind of like, yeah,
he sold me, bro. Oh, he sold me.
I think there are things that he does really, really well. And his body of work is impressive. Like, I also think he deserves to be viewed through the lens of someone with an $11 million contract. 6 years, $64.5 million is a lot of money. And it's why I put him on that worst contracts list, and people push back, be like, "Oh, Mizzou, like they're 29-10 over the last 3 years. They have a real identity. Like he does the portal well. He's only screwed up the all-important defensive coordinator hire once, and it was Steve Wilkes, a hire that everybody at the time was like, they got Steve Wilkes. That's actually a really good hire. And then it turned out it was pretty bad. But they were able to move off that, and they've been really good on that side of the ball since then. I give Drink credit for realizing that he needed to take his hands off the offense, hire a primary play caller, focus more big picture. What a thought, Billy Napier. Thanks for telling On3 the thing that everybody's been yelling at you forever. We've only seen what that specific version of Mizzou looks like with Kirby Moore. Mizzou fans will tell you Kirby Moore as a play caller was great in 2023, and then it kind of fell off those last 2 years. TBD on how that dynamic is going to go with Chip Lindsey. Okay. So why is he not higher? Why are Will and I both lower on Drink than probably the consensus? Okay. Here's the ammo against him. They beat Ohio State in the bowl game. Huge for Mizzou. Huge. We're not taking away from that. He has then lost to 8 straight ranked teams. That 2023 squad beat 4 ranked teams. In the 5 seasons outside of that, this is going to sound like cherry picking, but 5 seasons is a lot. Okay, that's half a decade we're talking about. In those 5 seasons, Mizzou is 3-17 against ranked foes under Drink. And the biggest thing that I come back to that has him, for me at least, behind a Heupel or an Elko, both of whom took over total rebuilds. I think you would look at Drink in his situation and say Mizzou is a rebuild. They're coming off that weird tutor suspension thing with Barry Odom where they got locked out of a bowl game in 2019, whatever. What's his marquee win in the SEC? 2023 Tennessee against Joe Milton. It was an impressive game. Drink has yet to beat an SEC team that finished with a winning conference record, Will. Yep.
So I love that you started that point with I'm not going to take away from the Ohio State game, because that's the difference. Unfortunately, I'm going to do exactly that. I think that if I'm going to make this point about Bama just a couple of seconds ago, hey man, we're talking about an Ohio State team. Wasn't a playoff game. They were down to their third string quarterback. At the time, it felt like a really big launching point. I remember being so excited for Mizzou at the time. But then again, that win just looks like it's Madagascar right now. And you look at what Ohio State has done since, and you look at what Mizzou has done since, and you go, this is looking flukier by the day, because Mizzou has been given chance after chance after chance to not be Charlie Brown with the football. And it feels like they get to this point where it's okay, we're ready to go. We're physical. We're running the football. We're going to push you around. We're going to play hard-nosed defense. When they had Blake Baker, they were hitting the mess out of people. They had Brady Cook for it. It was okay, we have everything that you need. Luther Burden. Oh my God. And you look at it, you're who did they beat though?
The Kansas State win was impressive. That was kind of the launching point. A lot of his biggest moments are non-conference play, not necessarily within the SEC. So he is, look, he's still sitting on 0 for that. And if you recall, Mark Stoops got dragged for that. That was a big deal. When someone brought that up on KSR, he didn't believe it. He's what do you mean? I've only beat, he had 2 wins against SEC teams that finished with winning conference records. And people are like, oh, hey, but because he beats these teams, then they finish 4-4. I get that. Okay. That's part of it. But he's entering year 7 and he's got 0. Pete Golding has coached against 1 SEC team. He has more than Drink. All right. He already checked that box. Clark Lee has 1. Elko, Venables, those guys have 2. Beamer has 3. Heupel has 4. None for Drink. All right. And again, I am not trying to dismiss the consistency that he has brought to a program that was starved for consistency. Okay. They're in the midst of their best 3-year stretch since the Chase Daniel Blaine Gabbert era. That's what we're talking about right now. Okay. It's that is good, but you're not considered a top 5 coach in this conference if you're not beating the teams that really matter within this league. All right. And that's why Drink, I think the more that I look back on, as much as people say oh, we don't want him to fill this vacancy, I do think that there were a lot of people looking at it from the viewpoint of he's not the face of the program that I want or something like that. And they were letting their own biases factor into that. Maybe subconsciously there was also that as well that was factoring in, because I get it a little bit more so than maybe, November of last year.
Yeah, and I will say too, this is like a compliment sandwich here. I think that okay, they built like this perfect drink team in 2023. I mean, how many of his biggest wins were in the 2023 season, right? You can talk about that bowl game, Kansas State win, you talk about the Tennessee win. It's like, okay, all this happened. Now, with an expanded playoff, we get one more kind of shot to see what that team actually is. And we know more, because let's say you win a playoff game, we're having a slightly different conversation about you, but all of the success, I mean, we talk about like a Music City Bowl kind of thrown in here or whatever. But yeah, I think that like all the successes in that one year, it was just a bad situation that we were about to move to an expanded playoff. We just didn't have the ability to see them in that format. So that stinks, but it is what it is.
They had an opportunity in 24. Schedule set up beautifully, and they couldn't take advantage of it. They got waxed in the game that matters. Brady Cook was banged up. I get it. That team, like, as crazy as it sounds, that team was kind of disappointing. It was. And I know they had double-digit wins. That's still like, that's an opportunity to change perception of your program. And maybe they have done good things to change the perception of their program. But man, like, beating a top 10 team in the regular season, in doing so for the first time in the playoff era, that's a thing that's still going to hold you back as we have these conversations. He's a good coach. He's a good coach, but that context matters. Okay. Clark Lee, I had him at 7. Where'd you have him at again?
Okay, let me scroll up again. Amazing Radio 9.
Okay. We're pretty close on this. I don't think this has to be that confusing, but maybe he is confused some, because we do need to bring up the fact that he's 2-22 in SEC games without Diego Pavia as his QB1. Okay. And he also just led easily the most historically downtrodden program in the SEC to its best regular season program history. And that was a year after he took down number 1 Alabama. You've heard all of this. Good coaches recognize their flaws and adjust. He entered 2024 firmly on the hot seat. So he adjusts by relying much more on the portal than they had in previous years. They went all in with the New Mexico State thing, and it worked. We know regression's coming, okay? Regression is coming in a post-Diego Pavia world. If it doesn't, that's the story of the year in college football. If Vandy is a 10-2 team again, Clark Lee is a top 4 coach on this list. Like, we're also
he's like winning coach of the year. Like, what do you mean? He's like a top 5 coach in America if he could do that back-to-back years at Vandy.
Yeah, if Clark Lee pulls off like a Kurt Signetti type thing this year, and we're just like, wait a minute, he's doing what? Then we can have those conversations. Okay. Here's an interesting thing that I was debating with Clark Lee, and it's why I think he's worthy of being in the top half of SEC coaches. How many coaches in the SEC could have led that program to 10 wins? Maybe 3 or 4 was what I settled on. Like Kirby, yeah. I think Kirby could. I think, like, give Kirby a few years, he could do that. I actually would have taken Kiffin over DeBoer for that specific argument, though not for the argument that we'll have later on. Elko, maybe, just because he's already done 2 power conference rebuilds. But I'm not convinced that Sark would. Like, Sark, you hate the transfer restrictions at Texas, buddy. Yeah. I'm not convinced Heupel would. Heupel obviously has taken over rebuild in that state before, but like I don't know that the ceiling would have been that good. Like, that's been his ceiling at Tennessee. Would that be his ceiling at Vandy as well? I don't know. So like that, I just think that should be celebrated. And I think that accomplishment, while this list isn't specifically who has the best accomplishment on it, I think that's rarefied air. And I think there's a chance that we'll look back on that stretch of 24 to 25 that Clark Lee put together, a nationally relevant Vanderbilt program and go, wait a minute, that was incredible. That was more impressive than what James Franklin did. And so that to me is why I'm maybe a little bit higher on him than you.
Yeah, he's up there with Pete Golding in terms of the hardest guys to rank, right? Because you have to, people like hate Vandy now, which is like such loser mentality.
Yeah, they hate Pavia. They hate the coverage.
Yeah, I get, but we've made this point before, but it's like, if your team is worse than Vandy, which, hey, hand up, like, that's your fault. Like, it's like, you should be mad at you, not mad at them. So there's a couple of things here, right? Like, we're going to lose on both ends of this because he is going to be a victim of his recent success where we don't remember how tin pot dog water Vandy was. I mean, like the happiest thing to happen to them in like years was that they had a woman take a PAT when he took over. Like it was bad, bro.
That
Like
was
Vandy
before he took over, but yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like right before, like it was like this is the thing we're getting up for. Like that's we have no players that we're excited about. Like the crazy thing about like the Mason years too is they actually like kind of had quarterback and like parts of running back figured out. So it was like this is our hard ceiling. Like we have a multi-year starter quarterback. We have good and we still can't win. And so okay, you start off and you inherit that. You have 10. You have a 2-win team, but then I felt like that the win against Florida mattered. I feel like they had another one was at Kentucky that year.
Kentucky in the snow in Lexington. Yep. Yeah.
Those were like big program building wins. It's like, oh, then you backslide. Okay. But getting up off the mat at Vandy that second time is honestly even harder than the first because you've already had guys that are coming in to win and they're like, we're losing. Oh my God, what do we do? And so then to go outside of the box and, you talked about the New Mexico State guys, but what the reason why I don't feel bad about it is going to age is the infrastructure they're building with the Barton Simmons stuff, with getting in, the 5-star kid, with the fact that like this guy has completely changed the trajectory of Vanderbilt as a university from being something that we're like, hey, are they going to be like the next like Tulane where we just kind of stick them in the American if they keep playing like this across all sports, to like, oh, you guys are getting 5 stars and you're like selling Nashville as this cool place to play. But we forget about how bad they were because we want to hate on Pavia and the way he had success.
He did the thing that forever I thought was impossible at Vandy. He made a program that has been steadfast in its approach to use the benefits of football to benefit the greater good. He made them go, oh, we can use the benefits of football to benefit football. We're actually able to do that. You need proof of concept. It is so hard to do that. And you need the right person in place. And that's not to say that Clark Lee would be the guy that you would pick to like win in a national championship type scenario or anything like that, but right man, right spot. Okay. And we question if it was going to be that. If he regresses to like a 4-8 type season this year with what we expect to be a first-year starting quarterback in Jared Curtis, then we'll probably go back to saying some very, unflattering things about Vandy, and we'll wonder how much of it was just Pavia. But for now, I got to tip my cap to that, man. Have to. Absolutely have to.
I mean, if you can keep that kid in the boat there, that's the thing, is that's unlimited hopium. If you're at Vandy and you get a 5-star quarterback, it's like, hey, even if we win 4 games, we might win 6 the following year, and then maybe we'll win 8 the following year. Like, awesome,
Yeah, definitely. We've already talked Elko, so let's talk a little Heupel here. I have Heupel at 6, and I think that you could easily look at the body of work and go, that's everything Tennessee could have hoped for in a post Jeremy Pruitt world. And you can be proud of that. Like you have done things that you dreamed of in the 2010s by beating Alabama multiple times, by having a season in 2022 in which you felt like you had a real chance to win a national championship. You have had a consistently good offense that is actually fun to watch. And you also won in the swamp too last year. Let's not lose sight of that. Like I do that sometimes where I talk about like how it was a hollow season in Tennessee. Like, winning in the swamp is still significant when you haven't done it in 22 years, whatever it was. And I think that Heupel is the adult in the room that they very much needed. We have acknowledged all of that. Okay. I don't know that there's anybody that's putting him in like the top 4 in the SEC right now. Okay. Because you had him at 7?
5.
Oh, at 5. Okay. I knew we were 1 off on him.
Yeah.
The thing that's a little bit tough to get past is that they are in the last 3 seasons, 6 and 7 in true road games, road woes issue. And all 6 of those wins came against teams who lost at least 6 games. It's tough. Winning games away from home, doing so in hostile atmospheres, that matters. That's the best way to change perception if you're trying to do that. And Tennessee under Josh Heupel has certainly changed national perception. They are no longer the butt of the joke. You can't say that about them. I do think that Heupel has a finishing problem. I think it's kind of fair to point that out with the way that they have finished these last few years. And yes, I understand Nico having the bowl game moments that he did against Iowa made Tennessee fans feel a whole lot better about that. Like Tennessee could have very easily lost to Vandy in 2024, and that would have been really, really disappointing. But I think they've had some moments in recent memory that have just given Tennessee fans a bad taste in their mouth. So while I do think he is so much more stable and beats the vast majority of the alternatives that you could have in that job, it's why I'm a little bit closer to the middle of the pack with him as opposed to like saying he's top 3 or top 4.
Yeah, I think this is a guy, and I've referenced this before, but I don't like to weigh on it too much. But like one of the first things I said on this pod was about his offense and how it could kind of be figured out in the SEC because there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. And I'm actually kind of amazed on how he's been able to adapt to the SEC from what he was running at UCF, and how you can see shades of it, but it's very different. Pretty much every question that you had for Josh Heupel, can he play in the big boy physical SEC? Well, his lines have been awesome, right? On both sides of the ball. Can he run
That's
the
a good
ball?
point.
His running backs have been awesome. Is his offense gimmicky? Well, it depends on the quarterback. Like that's the thing, is it's like some years yes, some years no. But even in those quote unquote bad years, okay, Joe Milton, you still are 9-4. You win the Citrus Bowl. Okay, last year is going to leave a bad taste in your mouth. That's fine. I get it. But at the same time, like if you told Tennessee, you have to like weirdly like almost put on the orange colored glasses here and be like, Tennessee fans, like, dude, I'm 31 years old. You guys have respectfully been a joke for the vast majority of my cognizant life. This dude shows up and is immediately just reeling off like these good to great seasons. And again, like, hey, that was the other question. Could he beat Alabama? They did that in the big year
Twice.
in 2022. Yeah, you're right. They did it twice. And it's like, hey, like, despite the horrors of how rough this team can look sometimes, they've still competed and not really been sorry almost ever. I mean, you could call it a hollow 8-win season. It's an 8-win season. Again, plenty of LSU teams, I would love it if they won 8 games. So like the thought of you started off and you had a populist revolt, and it was like, who would take this toxic place? Who would come and take this job and save them? They just like the way he's built stability in a way that I thought it was going to be blowing in the wind with like QB play and gimmicks and people figuring him out. I mean, let's just take this inflection point of like the biggest criticism of Heupel is like the game in the rain against Georgia where they got quote unquote figured out. Okay, if that was the end of that and they figured that out, that was at this point 4 years ago. And he's still cooking dudes with this random guy from, what was it, Diablo community? Where did dude come from last year?
Joey Aguilar, yeah, by way of the App State, then UCLA, yeah.
Like, yeah, it's like, okay, let's just get this random dude off the street. We got a 5-star, didn't work out. Hey, no worries. This is our floor right now. Now, again, the defense was a big part of it. It's underrated. I'm not exactly sure they should have fired their DC. Don't exactly love the hire. We talked about that. But that's the kind of the thing. They could regress this year, and if they fire him, they're stupid. And I've said this over and over again. Like, this is fine if you're Tennessee for right now.
Tim Banks had a rough year. They couldn't tackle a soul. They couldn't tackle a soul. But at the same time, if you had told Tennessee fans, hey, you're going to have the same defensive coordinator for the first 5 years of the Josh Heupel era, after all the questions about complimentary football, they would have said, yeah. If you would have told Tennessee fans, hey, Josh Heupel is going into year 6 now, and he has yet to have a losing season in SEC play, be like, sign me up. That's good. These are good things. Okay. So I think it's probably more like 5 to 7 is where you're going to find Heupel in most of these rankings, and I think that's okay. Well, I have Lane kind of in his own tier. I had him at 4. Did you have him at 4 as well?
I also have him at 4, yeah.
Yeah. If you're putting Lane in the top 2, ask yourself this. Can you really do that for a guy who has not been a head coach in a power conference championship game, and he has not coached in a playoff game as a head coach? Should have been last year. Decided not to. The other thing, talked about this before. Lane has never started and finished as a top 10 team as a head coach. Okay. And you might say, Connor, that's a made up stat, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. And here's why. And it's actually the stat that I would point to as to why I don't think Curt Cignetti is the number 1 coach in the sport yet. I would still give that to Kirby Smart. Maybe I'm in the minority by saying that.
We're both homers. Okay? Look at us.
Maybe that's fine. Until you do that, start and finish as a top 10 team, you haven't done the hardest thing that there is to do in this sport. Have everyone tell you how great you are for 8 months and then deliver. have everyone tell you you're a national championship contender and actually be a national championship contender. It is harder than we give it credit for. And I know what you're thinking. Connor, how many times have other elite coaches done this? Well, I looked up all of them. Kirby Smart, Ryan Day have done it 8 times. Dabo Swinney's done it 6 times, but hasn't done it, of course, since 2020. Lincoln Riley, 5 times, but obviously all those were at Oklahoma. Marcus Freeman, 3 times. Kalen DeBoer, Dan Lanning, James Franklin, all have done it twice. Sark, Kyle Whittingham, Mario Cristobal, Luke Fickell, Dan Mullen, Mike Norvell, they all did it once. Okay? I believe that's the
Luke Fickell, the clown meme with the soldier.
Cincinnati. Mike Norvell.
They were really good at Cincinnati. Anyway.
Dan Mullen did that at Florida. I think that's the list among active coaches, if I'm not mistaken. I might have left 1 or 2. I looked up a lot of them. 9 of those coaches are still at their current school. All right. So you put a little bit more weight on that. What Lane did at Ole Miss was remarkable. Okay. 4 double-digit win seasons in his last 5 years there. So basically the non-COVID seasons. He was coveted for a reason. Okay. That's why he's a top 4 coach in this conference. But that's why I would put him behind someone like DeBoer, who has started and finished as a top 10 team at 2 different schools. And he's reached a national championship game. And he's coached in conference championship games in 2 different conferences. I think that matters. And while I'm not saying that DeBoer is as good of an offensive mind as Lane Kiffin, again, I'm talking about like the head coach things and all the things that have to factor into that. And that's why I would go in that direction, why Lane is still just kind of in his own tier outside of the top 3.
Yeah, I think him and Heupel are like similar, right? Like they've had some like good to great teams. Like I'm gonna give Lane a playoff appearance if that's okay with her. I don't think they were gonna get kicked out of the playoff conversation. Like,
like
okay.
Here's the thing. My whole point is like we just haven't seen him on that stage. And you could tell me like, oh, we got to see what it looked like when he was a coordinator on that stage. We also got to see what it looked like with Nick Saban coaching with him. All right. So like
pretty big deal. Yeah.
I mean, that's why it's tough.
What I'm not gonna do is like, because this would be a Homer take. Oh, they were gonna play Tulane, but they beat them. We don't know. There's no way to tell. There's no way to just assume Jon Sumrall just gets, because they got run out of the building against Pete Golding. I don't know, and I'm certainly not gonna say about the Georgia part of it because they had lost to Georgia within the context of that season. We won't talk about why they lost to Georgia the first time.
Well, Will, what if I told you that the 2024 team, by virtue of dominating Duke in the bowl game in which Duke was on its 3rd string quarterback, what if I told you that they showed everyone why they would have won a bunch of playoff games? Would you believe that?
I've really had to adjust from my 2024 opinion of Lane Kiffin because that was a rough year. It was really rough. Now, but
God, I hated that. Ugh.
But does have a signature win, which I don't think you could take away from him, which is against Georgia. That was a big win. Like that matters. Like you look, you can talk about target on your back, whatever. They cared about that. That was a big game. He did win that game. I don't think that stands alone at this point. I think the Oklahoma win, pretty big deal last year. I think that they've done some, but that's kind of alone on a tier of beating Georgia, right? And so that being said, I think him and Heupel are decently similar. I think that you took over an underratedly bad situation. You turned it around. Again, we forget about how bad Ole Miss was. And again, how this is part of the conversation. I'm sorry, how like to make Ole Miss a cool place to go, to have all the gimmicks and the stuff he was doing and the dunking and getting the transfers and getting the quarterbacks, like getting these freak wide receivers, like having an identity in the way that they did that played so well to, at least portal recruits on social media. That really mattered. And they have an identity. So like that, I get all the bad parts. I get losing the big games. I get dropping the weird games like Kentucky. Cool. They had a perfect team in 2024, just like Drink did. They at least got a big win out of it, right? So I get it. There's a lot of words to be said about a guy who essentially has not done a ton in terms of things that really matter, Yeah,
the 2024 schedule with that Ole Miss team, there's just it's hard to get around it, man. It's really hard to get around how that team missed the playoff. And yeah, maybe they could have done something on that stage. They didn't deserve to find out. Yeah, I think we're right with where we are with Lane right now. Okay. I went to DeBoer over Sark. You did as well. There will be people that will inevitably push back on that. They're like, DeBoer's not even a top 5 coach in the SEC. If we're in the minority on this, that's fine. I don't care.
Who
Some
doesn't
will.
think? I'm sorry. Really quick point. You made the point about who could just take their little shop and set it up at Vandy. I think DeBoer could do that because here's the thing about DeBoer. He's so milk toast. He fits in anywhere. That dude could coach on Mars because he has no personality and he just wins football games. It's not like he does like Southern fried whatever. Or it's not like he goes and talks about cheese. It's like the dude is like a chameleon. He's like Randall from Monsters Inc. He just blends into his environment. I think that dude could just, if we had like a what's it called? Like okay, way to go play the Martians. DeBoer is such a good choice for the coach because, like, what has he done but win big games everywhere he's been?
And that's my point. Yeah. What a thought. Coach who wins big games. Has lost some games that he should not lose. Agreed. Very much understand that. I think people that would say DeBoer's not top 4, top 5, like Sark's a better coach, they'll ignore the fact that Sark is 0-2 against DeBoer.
A real human being saying that Steve Sarkisian is better than him? Because that feels, how would one think that?
Yeah, I do think that there is some of that sentiment out there. Okay, maybe it's not even just Sark, but it's others like, oh, Lane Kiffin, you would take over DeBoer. Again, like we have the side by side. Sark and DeBoer faced each other those 2 years, and Sark won 0 times. Okay. Like that was with Texas, like established in year 2 and in year 3. And like, that's a different program. I understand that. It was a rebuild at Washington too. Let's not pretend like that was just some program that was made to, just thrive in those, that first year that he had.
And really quick, do you think Dan Lanning is what, like a top 3 coach in the sport?
Top 4.
At any rate,
top 4.
When Dan Lanning goes to bed at night, he checks under his mattress for Kalen DeBoer. That dude is his absolute nightmare. He had so many chances to get over the Kalen DeBoer hump, and that was in the Pacific Northwest. So he's been doing this. I don't know who the Sioux Falls rivals were, but I'm sure they hate this man too.
Bismarck, they play against them. Is that a D2 school? Maybe not. Couldn't tell you. Some are probably just going to conveniently leave out with any Kalen DeBoer conversation that this is a guy who in 4 years as a power conference head coach is 18-5 against ranked foes, is 8-3 against the top 10, both of which are the best marks among active coaches in terms of winning percentage. Sark in that same stretch, that same 4-year stretch that we're talking about, 15-11 against ranked foes. That's solid. That's not DeBoer. 6-8 against the top 10. Solid, not DeBoer. DeBoer is 12-4 in conference play since joining the SEC, which he joined when Sark did as well with Texas, and Sark is 13-3, so Sark has a 1-game advantage there, but very, very similar. But here's what tipped it for me. I don't look at Kalen DeBoer and see coaches that have his number. And if you tell me, Brent Venables had his number, I'd say, well, he kind of did just avenge that on the playoff stage, so that's not really as much of a thing anymore. Against Sark, Kirby, and Lanning, Kalen DeBoer is 7-1. Sark, meanwhile, is 0 against Kirby and DeBoer, 0-5. And for all the talk about DeBoer losing games that he shouldn't, who was it who also lost a game to the team in the Sunshine State who didn't go to a bowl game? Because Sark did that too. All right. And I was the one saying, like, look, this guy for 2-3 straight years, like he doesn't lose to teams outside of the top 15. And then we saw last year, we saw that play out, and we saw Texas have a lower floor. Okay. We'll see if that's going to continue to be something where Texas just has that one random dud. DeBoer has that one random dud. Okay. So if you're going to put that point against him, I think you also have to bring it up with Sark. Both are elite coaches. Okay. I think Sark can win a national championship. I think DeBoer can win a national championship. But side by side, I would go with DeBoer. And people that dismiss him just because he's not Nick Saban are totally dismissing what he has done in big time games.
Yeah, we talked about it before, but in the modern playoff era, right? Like, I love that you threw Lanning in there too. 7-1. It's like, yeah, I think there's more distance between DeBoer and Sarkisian than there is between DeBoer and Kirby, because Kirby's kind of beat him like one time and it didn't ultimately really matter. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like this dude, when it's time to get up for these big games, I know we're saying it ad nauseum here, but if basically the argument against DeBoer is fundamentally a meathead argument. It's like, oh, Bama standard, you lost to Florida State. Okay, well then let's do the meathead argument back, head to head. Boom, he's smoking everybody in his tier. And like, this is gonna sound so bad. There's all of Baton Rouge is gonna disown me, but it's actually kind of impressive that they looked that horrible against FSU. And I was making jokes about it, and like Bama's dead, and they found a way to appear in the SEC championship game. And it's actually very funny. And then also they lose to Oklahoma again. And what do they do? They beat that team on the road. It's like, who is this guy?
And it avenged the Vandy win as well, which that game was probably closer than what the final score indicated. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, like avenging losses is kind of a big part of being an SEC coach. You have a chance to avenge the Florida State loss this year. Can you do that? Like, is that going to be a thing that hangs over you? Kirby Smart avenged those 2 losses to Alabama in convincing fashion against Alabama in the SEC championship this past year. That mattered for Kirby to be able to do that against Saban's successor. So, yeah, I'm higher on him than most, I guess. Still, it's weird to process 11-4. We had a graphic here for the next round about like weird record seasons, about how difficult they are to replicate of like a team that goes 6-8. You're like, that's not supposed to happen in college football. You're supposed to go 11-4 in college football. And so if you want to make the case against him and say like, oh, Bama hasn't lost this many games since blah, 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 it's very easy to talk both sides of your mouth with Kalen DeBoer. When you actually sit down and look at the body of work, you go, all right, still pretty impressive. You still have a chance to win a national championship with a guy like him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll transition on this point, right? I know that the way the season ended for Alabama is not something they want to see, but that's why I actually disagree. I think right now, Kurt Cignetti is the best coach in the sport because I know how tough that Alabama team was. And I know how Kirby Smart and others, when they've had these bye weeks in these playoff games, have just come out rusty. And the way that Cignetti came out, just punched that Bama team in the mouth, I think says way more about Cignetti than it does Alabama because they had just won a playoff game. They were hot. So that being said, now transitioning onto our unanimous number 1 here.
Do we need to discuss much with Kirby here? Because here's the wild stat. Okay. I was trying to think of like, is there anybody on planet Earth who would argue against him as the best coach in the SEC right now? Like, even if Bama had won the SEC championship last year and Kirby was 0-3 all of a sudden against DeBoer, rings still matter. And that would still obviously probably weigh a little bit heavier. He's the only active SEC coach with an SEC championship, and he's got 4. So what are we doing here?
Pretty big deal. Pretty big deal.
That's I don't know. Call me old fashioned. Probably has to matter a little bit. Kirby's 1. It's a boring discussion. The better discussion is 1 versus 2 with Ian Cignetti. Again, I've kind of announced where I stood on that. I hope we get a head to head with those 2. I think that'd be so fun to be able to see. Like, as much as I fear the future of expansion and like getting to 2020, like getting to 24 teams in 2027 potentially, I do want to see some of these matchups play out. Like I want to see what it looks like again with Lanning and Kirby and like their styles. I've kind of like tried to will that into existence with playoff predictions in the past and stuff. Like there's a lot of good matchups that are just kind of sitting out there that I'm like, Oregon, Texas would be really fun. Or, like I just want to see what it would look like kind of on that stage, or like, I just think that there is an opportunity for us to have these conversations and have a little bit more data that actually pushes us in one way or the other. But then again, it's kind of more fun when it's debatable.
Yeah. I mean, I think exactly to your point, right? It's like the goal is to not just win the SEC, but win the Natty. Kirby has multiple of both. I think that as annoyed as you can be that they've had these couple of one and done years, 2 insane losses, not to do the hopium thing, but just wild, weird losses. If Cignetti does play Kirby, it's going to feel like a World Cup game. Like the first guy that makes a mistake is just getting fed to a shredder. That would be actually a very fun game. You look like you're about to say something.
I think I was trying to think of like the only ways that Kirby could fall off the one spot. It wouldn't even happen after this year. I think it would take Georgia missing the playoff in consecutive years and us wondering, is he on the Dabo path? That's the only way I think that I would push Kirby off of the one line. And it would probably take a different SEC team, not only winning an SEC championship, but then winning a national championship or coming very, very close to a national championship. Again, the guy has 2 rings. That's That's going to hold up well. That's going to hold up well, even if they're 9-3 and they miss the playoff in one season or something like that.
I'm going to have kind of a too woke take here, Connor. I'm sorry, but maybe kids from ages like 17 to, if you're Coach Signetti, 25, maybe those kids shouldn't be playing like this many football games, because think about the amount of teams that we've been like, man, they're really starting to fall off at the end of the year. It's crazy. Georgia, Tennessee, Texas A&M, a little bit Alabama last year, maybe not. So I think that's what I like about Signetti, is that his team was able to peak in games like in the teens, which is like very hard to do. Miami technically did that, but it was because they were kind of dog water at other points in the season. They were just saving their good plays. But like that being said, to do that, I think that's what the game is going to be about, is about wear and tear management, peaking at the right time. You're not going to have these dominant, again, save for last year, you're not going to have these dominant beatdowns like we were expecting from the earlier Georgia team. So that's what I want to see. And I think Georgia fans would, like, in a moment of honesty, agree with me there, that they want to see, like, hey, we don't want to get into the back half of the year and wonder, hey, is Stockton like hurt? How many Bobos do we need here? We can't throw the ball 10 yards. What's going on? I think that those are things that some of it's chance, but that's my only criticism for Kirby right now, is just peaking at the right time.
Adapt or die. Name of the game. So here's a question that we can ask. Who rises the most on this list in 2026? I think Golesh and Sumrall winning 8 games, if they did that this year, especially knowing the context of both of those programs, Auburn and Florida, as prime dud of the decade candidates heading into 2026, I think them sliding into that 8-9 range, all of a sudden just being middle of the pack in the SEC after one season as SEC head coaches, I feel like that's definitely possible. Do you think that is?
Yes, that is actually such a good question, man. I might, and kind of a weird one here. I think South Carolina is going to have a pretty good year. I think Beamer can rise.
I mean, it's. I wonder where he would have been at last year. I think he would have been like 6 or 7 if we were doing this last year, because we did hot seat index, so we didn't necessarily outline that in the same sort of way. But like, just in terms of like how you and I see this, probably would have peaked at 6 or 7.
It's the classic Will ranks a guy too low and then he does better than that. And it's like, wow, look at this guy who surprised me. It's like, maybe I shouldn't have him this low. I don't know. I could just, based on the weird stuff that happened last year, but I could very easily see Shane Beamer with the new OC, with the return of Lenora Sellers, with a running back that can hopefully carry the football, with Nick Harmer back, my boy. I could see him in the top 10.
Thing that'll matter this year that could cause certain coaches to rise: consecutive playoff berths. Something that in the SEC, Sark, Kirby, they're the only 2 coaches that have been able to do that. So that matters. Think about, DeBoer had a year in between. So I think doing something like that, if like Elko or DeBoer can do that.
I think doing it at different schools is more impressive than doing it consecutively. Because that's like, if you do it consecutively at 2 different schools, you just walk into a great situation,
Yeah, I mean, in the context of the 14 playoff versus the 12-team playoff is obviously different. That Bama team would not have made the 14 playoff that DeBoer had last year. There's probably a lot of different ways that you can spin that. But I just think doing it consecutive years is still impressive. You're right. If you can do so at 2 separate schools, that would be a nice flex as well.
Do you give Pete Golding credit there if he does it at Ole Miss?
No, not for getting to the playoff, because he didn't coach in the regular season last year. I would not give him consecutive playoff berths. If he has consecutive seasons with playoff victories, let's have that conversation. That's a little,
and that's what matters, folks. Winning games.
Yeah. Who could fall the most on this list? It's probably Clark Lee. If Vandy goes 5-7, does he fall 4 spots and behind some of those year 1 guys? Like, that's probably the way that it would trend, because if that happens, then we're doing all the side-by-sides of like the numbers with and without Pavia. And that would be a fair thing to bring up for a coach that's entering year 6, So I think that he would probably be the most likely to fall. And we're leaving off guys that would get fired, obviously, because they wouldn't be listed on this next year. But yeah.
Heupel, another guy I might have a little bit too high, and I got him at 5. But again, if I'm predicting defensive regression, and that's actually kind of been their bread and butter, I don't imagine a great year for Tennessee this year. So I don't think he could be at 5 at the end of the year.
Can that defense regress? Well, look up the numbers for last year, man. It was bad. It was bad, especially the missed tackle numbers. Oh my God. Their pass defense was atrocious. was terrible. I mean, Tennessee was a rough watch for too much of the
but
season.
their offense was fun. That's the thing. Is their offense going to be that fun again is the question.
Yeah. I worry about that less. They always seem to find a way. They usually do. Okay, so let's recap our 16. You want to start? You could start with your 16. Just go 16 through 1 again, just so we put a bow on this.
Okay. Let's rock. All right. 16, Lebby. 15, Silverfield. 14, Stein. 13, Golesh.
Wait, who'd you have at 16? You had Lebby at 16?
I had Lebby at 16. Yes.
Oh, I thought you said 15. Go ahead. Sorry, my bad.
I'm sorry. I would start over now. Okay. 16, Lebby. 15, Silverfield. 14, Stein. 13, Golesh. 12, Drink. 11, Beamer. 10, Sumrall. 9, Lee. 8, Golding. I'm going to switch mine up and make my 7, Brent Venables. My 6, Mike Elko. 5 is Heupel. 4, Lane Kiffin. 3, Steve Sarkisian. 2, Kalen DeBoer. And 1, of course, Kirby Smart.
Are you saying Stein with a sh? Like Stein?
Did I make him German? I didn't mean to do that. He might be German.
I think a little bit. That's
Rammstein. I bet Stein knows about Rammstein.
We should have thrown that at him. Like, have you ever been called Stein before? Because I don't think it kind of makes you sound a little tougher, no? Just a little bit. If he needs a rebranding, we're here. We will gladly take care of that. All right. Speaking of Will Stein, I had him at 16, Ryan Silverfield at 15, Jeff Lebby at 14, Alex Golesh 13, Jon Sumrall 12, Pete Golding 11, Shane Beamer 10, Brent Venables 9, Eli Drinkwitz 8, Clark Lee 7, Josh Heupel 6, Mike Elko 5, Lane Kiffin 4, Steve Sarkisian 3, Kalen DeBoer 2, and Kirby Smart at 1. We'll have a graphic. Maybe just top 10. It's tough to fit 16 on. We'll see. All right. People don't get upset if your guy doesn't make the graphic. Be top 10.
Yeah, and then that's the thing. I'm torn. Do I crab a bunch of names in there and then rage bait you for like if you're a Mississippi State fan, or do I just leave it a mystery and be like, oh my God, where's my guy?
11 through 16 is the same thing. You know, if you're not top 10, you're last. That's what I always say. All right, let's kick it to our guy, our new buddy. We had a lot of fun. With Ben Garrett. We talked a lot about
life,
many
things.
I was trying to think of the right way to say that. We talked a lot about him kind of at the end of the regular season with his viral interaction with Lane Kiffin, and we recap kind of that, all that went into it. Some adult language in here, so maybe not the interview to listen to in the car with your kids, but great stuff from Ben and something that I think a lot of people get a kick out of. So here is Ben Garrett. I'm now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is Ben Garrett, who covers all things Ole Miss for On3. Ben, pretty quiet last 7 months on the beat in Oxford. Has anything happened, or is it just kind of business as usual for you?
Just business as usual, holding hands with my wife, walking through the grove, looking at the squirrels. Yeah, nothing crazy. Not like Lane leaving in a very chaotic way and Pete taking over and leading them to a pair of wins into the semifinals of the college football playoff. The most chaotic of it was the roster pieces they're putting it together. Like that was really fun and interesting to watch. It's still fun and interesting to watch. I mean, it's July 8th. July 1, LSU owed money, buyout player money for Devin Harper and Prince Willie Monmiel, and still hadn't paid. We'll see how that works out. But in a world where nothing matters and nothing's enforced, who the heck knows? But yeah, it's been such a quiet time over here in Oxford, Mississippi. The beautiful magnolias are blooming. No, it's gearing up for war come August, man. It's a pretty crazy and chaotic time.
Okay, so you were also at the center of a lot of the craziness that's unfolded. Mm-hmm. Will brought up this story back when it happened, with you being let go originally from On3, being brought back by On3. Mm-hmm. And then when you got back, you had all this drama that unfolded when you made a comparison to Lane Kiffin that shares a name with a certain garden tool that people couldn't very much look up. And then you were confronted by Lane at the Egg Bowl. Everybody saw the Trey Wallace video that went viral. Can you share with our audience how kind of all of that went down over a very small period of time for you?
It was nuts. Back in September, when you're talking about being let go from On3, yeah, I wasn't even let go by On3. I was let go by someone who came in, and some stuff happened that was not in any way true. And so, like, when you're standing on truth, man, is if you got the truth in your corner, you're gonna win out. You know what I mean? And so I'm thankful to On3 and them for Shannon Terry, Will Crawl. They swooped in and they were like, wait a second, what happened? And we kind of explained the situation. And within 12 hours, I'm back where I've always been for almost 20 years now at the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com, affiliate of On3. Sign up today for $1. 5 days to try it out for $1.
Can he just do a promo? I think it's the first time it's ever happened on here.
Dude, this
shit was plugged.
Welcome to Everything is Wrestling, y'all. Okay, like, I mean, I'm at the point CM Punk went and took Sami Zayn's title in 9 days. Like, I'm ready to cut promos. You know what I mean? And that was September was it was wild, man, and it was incredible to see, like, the community that we've built for almost 20 years. The Spirit and has moved from Scout to 247 now to On3. To see that community rally to my side, I didn't know I had it like that. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I was like, dang, that's pretty cool. And so to hear from people, contemporaries in the business, like Shay Dixon over at LSU, people that I think the world of, saying, hey, man, you got to start giving yourself some more credit here and grace. And I was very thankful for that. And it's been great. And if anybody wants to try us out, we'd love to have you. It's again, the Ole Miss Spirit. But then, turn around and if you haven't learned within 4 minutes of talking to me, I love to run my mouth. Like, I talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. Now, that is both the blessing and the curse that a sovereign God has graced me with. Number one, he commands me to be honest. Number two, but also understand that can get you into some stuff, and that was exactly what happened in November. It was kind of like a throwaway comment on a Tuesday podcast where I'm sitting there talking to Brad Logan. He's like, we're going through all the things, and I'd heard that he was leaving, and I mean, he'd been trying to leave since the Oklahoma game, if not earlier than that, like October. Like, he was leaving, he was gone. He made a decision, in my opinion, after Ole Miss finished 9-3 with his best defensive or maybe overall roster, in his opinion, in 2024. Even though that was laid at the feet of him, like, he's the reason why they went 9-3. He's the one that started the fifth string running back at Florida. You know what I mean? He's the one that. Anyway. Didn't matter. We were talking about Willie Woney because he didn't want to be honest. He wanted to coach in the playoffs. And so, leaning on his past history and everything I knew to be true, because I talked or covered Lane 3 times, talked to him 3 times a week, be in official capacity or off the record for 6 years. This is not somebody I didn't know. This is somebody that knew me and I knew him. But, one thing that Lane, one of his go-tos, man, has always been like, I don't even know who you are. I don't know who you are. It's like very Regina Georgie, you know what I mean? It's like, who are you? Who are you? Right. And so I think what was funny about that situation is, one, it was like saying, hey, a zebra can't change its stripes, but no one's like, oh, how dare you call Lane a zebra? It's because of the crassness and the kind of, it's the crass nature of the comparison itself. And so, like, he thought I called him straight up a hoe, but that just showed me again they didn't understand basic, metaphors and any analogies, anything. And so then that whole thing happened. Like, Trey Wallace is behind me, and so is an Ole Miss coach who I won't name, who's a friend. And we had been talking on the field for like 5 minutes. That was the funny thing. Like, we'd been talking for a while. He first walked up and he's like, did that look like a team that was distracted? I was like, I never said anything about a team being distracted. I did say you can't turn a hoe into a housewife, which is objectively hilarious. He didn't think it was hilarious, which is fine. Like, I wouldn't either. But it's wild to me that, like, all these months later, and having talked to him, and he called me the next day with the most awkward apology I've ever heard in my life. Like, I was trying to talk to him like a human. I'm like, hey, man, like, blah, 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 it's all good, blah, blah, blah. And then he was like sticking to a script. He was like, and also I wanted to say, because that's Lane, and I've talked to him since. Yeah. I've talked to him multiple times since. I haven't talked to him in a while now, and I have nothing against Lane. It's just everything is performative with him, man. And, like, I got to give it to him. Nobody understands that this business here now is wrestling, just like everything is wrestling, but especially college football these days, like Lane Kiffin. And I had a coach behind me who was looking out going, don't say anything. You can't win this. You don't say anything. You can't win this. And he walks up, and I stood there. I didn't even know he talked shit till I was like halfway down the hall. I was like, oh, wait, wait a second. Because it just wasn't like that. And he's making $98 million, and still all these months later, he can't wash off a loudmouth idiot from North Mississippi calling him a hoe, or what he thinks calling him a hoe. And I just, it's hilarious. He can't wash it off, and it drives him crazy. But yeah, it's been a wild year, man. And I was at the beach like a couple months ago, and I was playing with one of my daughters, throwing a football, and just show you what the relationship like is with Lane. I quite literally texted to him because like she dropped it. It was her fault. Okay, she ran a bad route. She rounded off the top of the route. She wasn't tough with her hands at the top of the catch point, and she didn't believe me. So I was like, I just texted Lane. I said, all right, Lane, seriously, who's right here? And he goes, Ben, that was a shitty ball. And that was, you see what I'm saying? So it wasn't even like that. You know what I mean? It's funny. Like, he's fine. But it made for a fascinating moment in time to go viral for something like that, which in the moment I had God in my ear going, don't say anything. Don't say,
Yeah.
But turns out also it was Jake Schoonover saying, don't say anything. You can't win this, but like, it was an interesting thing. I'm just, to consider all that went down and to where everything is now, you give thanks for where you are, and you just continue to live every single day and not worry about it. Just be yourself, be authentically you. No one can say that Ben ain't authentically himself, good, bad, and indifferent. You know what I mean? So that one was that was wild. Because and also the funny thing, dude, is saying, well, I wasn't gonna look at my phone. Like, I'd already made the decision. Like after the Egg Bowl, I was like, oh, I don't want to deal with this. To re-log back in essentially 2 days later, I was like, oh, this is what LeBron deals with every day. You know what I mean? Like, this is what, like, I can't imagine what, I don't know, pick your most hated, like Cody Rhodes, you son of a, it was wild. The other one's going, oh man, you did. It was insane. And still to this day, even it's like shooting fish in a barrel, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Cause like, I can just mention LSU, and buddy, the mentions on Twitter from LSU fans are storming in, and I'm gonna get that gif of me going like, hey, huh? What's that? Huh? Oh, he talked that. So yeah, that's a long roundabout way of saying it's been a very non-eventful year.
This guy's going to slander LSU fans and pronounce it GIF in one breath. Wow, he's just coming right in my character here.
LSU fans are that, man. The thing is like, I love LSU fans because they're about ball. They're about that action. You know what I mean? They coming, baby. So like, whatever. That's part of the fun of the spirit of the thing that we've lost in this sport. I love that. Like, I grew up, going to Ole Miss LSU games when as a teenager. This is true. In Baton Rouge, getting a beer bottle thrown in my head because like I was like walking around being little Ben uninhibited, go, yeah, go Rabs. Like, shut up, you stupid idiot. That's how it's used to be. That's how it was. So like, I understand that rivalry. And like, I'm just glad that the rivalry is being treated for what it is. Now, Lane added gasoline to a fire, but like, this has always been one of the SEC's most like historic rivalries. And to see it now at this place is, for me, a hell of a lot of fun, because I'm one of those that I grew up hating State, but I really grew up like, dude, just beat LSU, man. Let's go down to Red Stick. But it's a different world now. So I have no problem with LSU fans. Talk your stuff, man. I love it. Like, that's what it is. It's too much these days, bro, about people worrying about things that aren't the spirit of college football, dude. Like, some of them really do hate me, which is fine. But like, a lot of the hate for the most part is performative, just like Lane's entire shtick, including the stuff that happened at the Egg Bowl. A lot of it's very performative. It ain't personal. It's social media. You know how many people I've met in person? They're like, man, I've said some terrible things to you online. I'm like, yeah, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you can put it away, bro. Like, all you got to do is pick that thing up, cut it off, and put it to the side. You're fine. So, I've learned through all of this year is, one, be authentically yourself, because you have to be able to stand on what is true. But two, also, like, do I apologize for a crude metaphor? Sure, because no one wants to be called a hoe. But also, I wouldn't call him a hoe. I've explained that. But the last thing is, it ain't that serious, because even after that viral moment that a lot of people keep building their entire opinions around, both of me and Lane and whatever, I'm good with Lane. I'm fine. I think he made I have issues with his exit and the decision that he made and how he's handled things and how he continues to operate. I think it's hilarious that LSU obviously forced him to stop going on Twitter for like 2 months, which was
for the best. It was for the best.
It was for the best, and like Verge has been great. Like he steps up, he's like, yeah, I mean, Ole Miss offered more money and he went to LSU for less. Like that blows a whole narrative up, like Verge going, hey guys, everybody else paid about the same. I know Ole Miss paid a little bit more, but like he wanted to go. Okay, well that blows up a narrative because he wanted everyone to believe that, oh well, they pushed me out. Oh well, I'd hit my ceiling. No, dude, you just wanted to go to LSU. And if you'd have just said that, hey, I want to go to LSU, bet skis. At least it's honest. Don't pull the whole. They tried to run me off the road as I was heading to the airport. Dude, you had a state highway patrol escort and the dudes who were driving the cars I know, and they're like, dude, he's just lying through his teeth. What are we talking about? Like, chill out. It's not that serious. But he's the star of the of a movie in his head. You know what I mean? And everything feeds itself, and it's just bizarre because Ole Miss quite literally, and he'll push back against this, and I don't disagree with him. He'll say like, Ole Miss was going, if you stayed here and you won like you thought, we'd build you a statue. And he's like, what does that mean? What does that matter anymore in 2026? To which you're like, fair, right? Like fair. Like who the heck goes, man, I can't wait to get to Norman to go to see the Baker Mayfield statue. Like that's a legitimate, but it's the other stuff, the extracurricular stuff feeding into both the rivalry and how everything is, again, wrestling that I think most people kind of get tired of.
So I'm going to change gears on you real quick because we could probably talk about that moment for an hour. You spoke on the financial part of it, right? And it's really interesting to me because it feels like Ole Miss is kind of over, like they've had this quiet kind of metamorphosis over the last 10 years, just kind of financially across all sports. You kind of look across the board and you go, okay, baseball, women's basketball, men's basketball, football, these Ole Miss teams that LSU was used to going in there and stomping out, 15 years ago. They feel very different from the modern Ole Miss teams. And it wasn't too long ago that we were talking about Lane Kiffin kind of going around that weird state law about like the 4-year contracts and all that stuff. That feels like eons ago at this point, right? So what has happened under this administration to kind of remold Ole Miss athletics?
See, and that's one of my biggest pushbacks against the whole, good luck, Ole Miss. Y'all are going to fall back to being Ole Miss now that Lane's gone. Like, you can say you should have maybe gone a different direction, have more of an expansive search and this, that, and the other. Like, you could have questions about Pete and the long-term viability of this program under Pete. But in terms of competing, number one, Ole Miss was out in front very, very, very early of the transfer culture. Lane deserves a ton of credit for that. Before anybody else was adding transfers, he was going to Canada and getting Tavius Robinson and Dean Leonard. All right. Now, it wasn't just Lane. It was his scouting and development department, a lot of which still remain here because all of the defensive staff stayed. It's not like Lane targeted and found Tavius Robinson. Randall Joyner did. And then he brought him to Lane, and then they watched it and they said, heck yeah, let's go get him, all this kind of thing. Same thing with whoever was I think Terrell Buckley was the defensive or cornerbacks coach at the time for Ole Miss. So, like, Ole Miss from a program standpoint has been operating at a different level. Once the NCAA essentially said, money doesn't matter. Oh, it doesn't matter? As long as we got as much as everybody else. You're talking about the school of doctors and lawyers. You tell us all we got to do is have money to go compete at the big boy table. No bureaucracy, selective bureaucracy getting in the way. And so all of the investment was already there. Hell, you saw the investment in 2013. Stuff that these days fans, even LSU fans who hate Ole Miss, would laugh about. Laramie Tunsil being a level 1 violation for sleeping on Chris Kiffin's couch. We laugh at that now. We're like, okay, who gives a shit? We said the same thing back then. But most everyone else is going, oh, no, y'all doing everything else, or y'all going way beyond all this kind of stuff, and that's just simply not the case. While Alabama players back in those days, the 2010s, were driving around, every new kid that went on a visit. I've got Ole Miss targets from Mississippi who went over there and came back with Dodge Chargers. But here's the thing. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying, great, do what you got to do to get players, because I'm a player advocate, because they've suppressed the labor force for their entire existence. And now that and all anyone said was, hey, where are the adults in the room? And now you ask the adults in the room, and they'll probably say, yeah, we've let these guys down, because you let it get to this point where I don't know how in the world it recovers. The Protect College Sports Act, come on now. Anybody that wants Congress to fix things, that's hilarious. Give me a break, man. Like, you should be pissed off at your athletics directors and the chancellors and all of those feckless nimrods sitting in offices in Indianapolis. You know what I mean? Who just, quite frankly, wanted to cling to their jobs and to any semblance of power that have led us to this place. And now they're saying, bail us out. Help us. We can't do it ourselves. That's what you've been paying these dudes to do. These people in Indianapolis, and that's what you've been paying them to do. No one wants to admit what the truth is. You're headed toward, and it's the only outcome that salvages whatever this is. You're headed toward collective bargaining. You have to admit it to yourself, admit it to everyone else, and let the players be represented, like be employees and be representatives. And you know what? You just got to have to say what we've all known to be true since the beginning of time. Yeah, school don't really matter when it comes to these kids. That y'all want to get your degree 4 years after school, we'll give you 4 years to get a 4-year degree.
Cool. We ain't coming to play school.
They're not here to play school. Have y'all seen their schedules, man? Their schedules are insane. Regimented. I'm not talking about a class schedule. I'm talking about daily schedules for why they're here. They are the principals of a multi-million-dollar corporation. Their responsibility is to be the best versions of themselves as an athlete, on the field, stay healthy, get bigger, faster, and stronger, hit those benchmarks in the strength and conditioning program. Buddy, you need to trim 15 pounds. I don't give a shit if you go to basket weaving, buddy. You better meet weight in 2 weeks. You know what I mean? That's what their job are. And like, they're up every day at 5:30 in the morning workouts, and they got and all their stuff is scheduled for them. Stop treating them like they aren't what they already are. Stop. Oh, how do we fix it? Collective bargain with the labor force. There you go. But they don't want to do that. So yeah, it's a fascinating time. And that's why, for me, you can get swept up in all the things that we think are negative about the sport and be fearful about where it's going. I've heard Dan Mullen say out of his mouth, yeah, the only way this changes is if we have a complete and total reset. Do we understand what that means? A complete and total reset of this of the NCAA of the sports, starting from scratch, what you'd be blowing up. That's where, like, people probably think, yeah, dude, LSU fan, let me get in these mentions. I want y'all in the mentions. I want that, because that feels like college sports. Yeah, we're going to whoop your butt. We're going to roll into Oxford, Mississippi, and Lane Train's going to roll out there with a dub and put little brother back in a spot. Cool. Talk that shit. You know what I don't want to talk about? Man, I really hope that Ted Cruz's bill gets through Congress.
Seriously.
That's insane.
I don't care.
I don't care. Solve the problem. Y'all are paid to do it. Stop. Well, Ben, what do you think they should do about? I don't know. Hell, pay me if you want my opinion. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But instead, they want to go, well, Congress, Ted Cruz, of all that, Ted Cruz. Save us, Ted Cruz. Give me a break, man. This is insane.
Ben, biggest takeaway so far of Pete Golding, besides the fact that I think he might be the best cusser of any coach in college football already.
I'm going to be honest with you. He's so relatable, because the first time he got up there in one of his press conferences, he sounded like me. He's like, and guys, we've talked about this. Like, God is good, and I'm so thankful for all the work, all the things that God has done for me in my life and all these things. I love the F word. It's terrible. I can use it as a noun, an adverb.
We'll hold off on these airways with that one. But
I'm not going to do it. But like Bob Knight, you said it before we started, Con. Like Bob Knight said, it's the most versatile word in the English language. And Pete is a big believer in that. You know what I mean? Like, my man, he talks like he's from Hammond, Louisiana, but dude, I swear he sounds like he's just straight out of like Ripley, Mississippi, New Albany, Mississippi. Like he rolled off the streets of Ingomar and got the head coaching job at Ole Miss. I love it about him. Like, he's very authentic in that way, and that is something that is a departure from Lane, because Lane is very guarded, especially in what he says publicly, even what he says privately. That's the funny thing about all the stuff that happened back in November. It's like, I don't know who you are. I went into his, like, he called me into his office because he wanted to talk about why I was asking about Ulysses Bentley, to which I was like, all you got to say is, why ain't you playing the kid? You know what I mean? Well, he's not any good. Well, none of your running backs are any good. And he's the best one of all your bad options. So why are you not playing him? And the answers were never sufficient. So
why was that, Ben? Why didn't you play him?
We still don't know.
We don't know. I've heard things, but like I'm not. I don't know.
It can't be.
I don't know. I don't know what y'all are talking about. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, so
Anyway.
anyway, I had a hard-hitting recruiting question here. I'm going to skip that one and say I'm going to Oxford for the LSU game.
I
Where
want
should
the
I go?
hard-hitting recruiting question though. Like I can be.
I don't think
can
we have
be more-
time, man. We just
Hit
talked
me with it.
about we're going to get into the Quran if I ask you a recruiting question.
I will give you my best 30-second answer. I promise. Go.
Okay. Okay. Back to back. So Pete Golding feels like he's hitting high school way differently than Lane. Does that feel accurate?
That was what I was going. Thank you, Connor, for asking the question. Also for Will, it's tied into what I was talking about. He's very authentic. That's been the biggest takeaway. But honestly, the shift in recruiting philosophy in the high school ranks is the thing that really sticks out to me the most. Like they're building their rosters from the inside out through high school. Like they are focusing most of their high school recruiting on the offensive and defensive lines because they believe philosophically that's the only way you can build them. Like you're not going to keep David Gabriel George is about to choose from Ohio State, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. It's not going to be Ole Miss. It's going to be Ohio State or Tennessee. And when he does, if he's not playing wherever he signs this time next year, dude, he'll be in the portal as a sophomore.
Exactly.
All right, because all the money's going to be. It's different with offensive linemen. It's different with defensive linemen. You can both retain them and build them up in a different way. So I think that's been the biggest shift in philosophy. And one thing that I've noticed in answering your question, Will, about how Pete Golding has changed things a little bit, but mostly like the offense is 80% the same under JDB. There, a lot of the stuff is still the same, but you can see where he's putting his hands on it.
There you go. So I am going to Oxford for the LSU game. Where should I go beforehand and where should I hide after?
He's an LSU fan. Keep this in mind as well.
Which
This
is
is a
great.
very important part.
Number one, call me when you get into town. Number two, we're going to Funky's because Funky's is the best. My guy Lee will hook it up. Like we're going to Funky's. You've never been to Oxford, and while I don't prefer the Library Sports Bar and Grill, I'm 40 years old. Like I would encourage Will to go. I'd be like, Will, you should go to the library, go check it out. Food wise, like if you've never been here, please eat at Ajax. It's my favorite restaurant in town. It's legendary. It's right there on the square. You're going to go, I can't eat this much food. Yes, you can. And eat that. But like, I'm an OG guy. Like I love Proud Larry's right off the square too. Like Proud Larry's is my spot I used to be my spot for live music, but like I'm old now, dude. Like the kids these days, I don't know, they might be different than me. You know what I mean? Like we had Pearl Street back in the day. We ain't got that no more. So I would say you have to hit the high water marks. You have to hit the ones you got to hit. Funky's. I love the vibe at Funky's. The Library Sports Bar, and eat something. Like don't come here and go eat at Crystal. All right? Don't be that guy. Go eat somewhere that you haven't eaten before. Eat local and try it out, and also be willing to walk around. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Because why you think most people will want you to hide, or why you think, Will, you might need to hide, Ole Miss fans aren't like that. They really aren't. They're going to be pissed at Lane. As long as you're not doing what you do, going up there and doing what some LSU fans do, which is instigate, you're going to be fine. Lane, I have no idea what's awaiting him when he gets here, except for like a really intense light show and maybe like some different Hoe-themed merch and Hoe-themed, music choices.
I'm all on board for all of that. Please, Ole Miss needs to lean into this as much as possible, and I really hope that they do, and that this is everything that we've been talking about for months now. Ben, I want to get you out of here with the record prediction. I said on your airwaves a couple of months ago that I think Ole Miss breaks through, gets to its first SEC championship ever, and I guess I'm zagging with the Vegas odds by saying that. What's your prediction for this team?
The 7.5 win loss total set by BetMGM and FanDuel, I don't see it. I think they'll clear 7.5 really easily, but the schedule is tough. So I understand. Like, there's a reason why Vegas has built cathedrals. You know what I mean? Like, I can see where they're thinking. Like, if anything happens to Trinidad Chambliss, what does Deuce Knight? Like, what will Deuce Knight do with a 9-game SEC schedule and arguably the toughest schedule in Ole Miss modern era history? This is a tough schedule. Having said that, if this were not Ole Miss on the helmet, instead LSU for Will, or Georgia or Alabama, and you looked at what you're bringing back, even compared to the schedule, you go, I don't care. They're going 10-2 at work, like 9-3. Like, but the thing is 9-3. Will 9-3? It's got to be the right 9-3. Get you into the back end of the playoff. I don't know. I would argue that a 9-3 team would be more worthy of selection than say like Tulane or James Madison. That those were a waste of times last year. They were a waste of times. So in that way, I understand why the 16, extending out to 16 makes sense, just because you want to include them. But like we need to see who's really competing here. So 9-3 to me is what I hear pretty regularly, and that I can follow that. But like I'm looking at 10-2, man, and I see swing games. All right. I see LSU as the biggest early season swing game. That's LSU at home. You got to beat them. That game will probably determine which one of those teams win double-digit games. All right. Oklahoma, you got to go back to Oklahoma. Now, you won there last year, but it was tough, right? You get Georgia at home, but you got to go to Texas. What does Texas look like? Everybody's been wanting to crown Texas ever since Arch took over. You know what I mean? I still hadn't seen it, but I love what they did in the offseason. I mean, Cam Coleman's a stud. I think he's kind of getting overslotted in terms of how good he is. Like, I love Cam Coleman, but dang, dude, we got him up there. Jeremiah Smith and Cam Coleman. Let's chill. Hollywood Smothers is going to be great for Arch, but like, there's more pressure on Texas and Arch and Steve Sarkisian than Ole Miss guys. You know what I mean? Like, Ole Miss, they got it. They're playoff or bust. Ole Miss is playoff or bust because, like, you got Trinidad, you got Keywan Lacey, the best quarterback, the best running back, two of which received Heisman votes last year. Trinidad finished 8th in the Heisman voting. Like, that with all they've got coming back, yes, there are question marks. Offensive tackle, you're replacing a lot at wide receiver. Deuce Alexander is back, but like Dejon Stribling was really good, y'all. Now, he wasn't good he wasn't like Dejon Stribling first pick of the second round good until like October. But same thing, you lost Prince Will. Well, can Blake Purchase and Jonathan Maldonado and all you got coming back, Centarian Perkins, because they signed Luke Farrelly and Keaton Thomas. He can play more of that 9-eye slide down, what Prince Will was doing. Prince Will was a negative value run defender. So was TJ Daugherty. They feel like they portaled over TJ Daugherty, and like that's not one that they cried about losing. Prince Will, they built the guy and turned him into a sack monster. They missed that. That's the loss. They're like, damn, we wanted to hold on to it. They re-signed him, for goodness sake. Still owe buyout money July 1. It's July 8th now. Devin Harper too, $407,000. It's not that matter.
Send the bill right to Jeff Landry. I'm sure he'll collect.
I'm gonna send it to you, Will. I'm gonna let you get into whoever needs to go to. But yeah, like there are legitimate questions about this team, but I think if it were any other logo on the helmet, and I had Andy Staples on the podcast recently, and he's like, oh yeah, it's just the logo. Seeing Ole Miss ranked 8th or 9th, bullcrap. If it was anybody else, that team returning what they return, regardless of the schedule, would be, in my opinion, no lower than 5. Like I think they've got everything to go compete again. There are legitimate questions, including like, what does it look like for a full season under Pete? What does that look like? John David Baker, like the offense is what everybody's going to be paying attention to. Does it look the same? Because defensively they've gotten better. So I say 10-2. I think they're going to split Georgia, Texas, and then lose another one. I just refuse to consider a loss to LSU in September. Can't do it. Sorry. I'm out there. They got to win that to me.
It's on my birthday, man. That hurts.
Sorry, bro. I hope your birthday is terrible.
And then I thought we were going to party. Wow. You're just going to mess up the whole day. It's fine.
I'm going to let you, we're going to party on your birthday. And hopefully at the end of the night, you will be like crying into, your Pabst Blue Ribbon. I don't know. Like, let's just, whatever it might be. So I say 10-2. That trap game, one trap game that I'm really looking at, though, potential trap game, Florida, man. Like, I think Florida is going to be tough. That's right after all the emotion of LSU. Like, all of that build up. And then you got to go to games where Ole Miss hadn't won since 2008 when they made Tim Tebow cry. Buster Faulkner, who I think is the future SEC head coach, has got his quarterback and it's his system. Jon Sumrall, man, he would have been Ole Miss's head coach. That's another story for another day. I really think Florida, I'm not saying they're going to be like some blow-up breakout team this year, but I think they're going to drive people crazy. So there are real landmines on the schedule. But if I'm going to save the same energy that everybody else that like on the national scale, I'm going to use y'all's energy for Ole Miss, man. Look at what they return. Look what they got. Look what they built on. Look what they did in the portal. 10-2. And if you fall short of that, you have to ask legitimate questions about why. And that's fair because this ain't personal. Like with all the Lane stuff, this ain't personal, even though he probably felt like it was personal because he didn't understand the metaphor. This is just professional, man. And Ole Miss is one of its very best rosters and is ready to go compete for another national championship. And again, remember, they fell one play shot playing for the national championship. Now that I look back on it, though, I watched that replay, And I'm glad to know that people are agreeing with me, because I tried to say that you don't call pass interference on a Hail Mary. It wasn't a Hail Mary. That was just straight up pass interference. It wasn't a Hail Mary. Will, I see your face over there. Go watch that play. That was just a schemed up play. It was pass interference. They should have gotten the ball at the one. They'd handed off to Keywan Lazy. They're going to the title game for the first time since the 60s. Don't you make them faces at me. No, I think 10-2.
I think that's a fair prediction. Ben, great stuff. Hopefully we'll see you in Tampa in a couple of weeks. And fingers crossed that you just get a couple of things to talk about this year. And it's not as boring as last year for you.
Yeah, last year. Golly, what a snooze fest. Anytime you need me, man, I enjoyed it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, man. All right, well, let's close with some lad of the week. I'll start with the thing that everybody is still kind of talking about, but also kind of annoyed with. Adam Sandler. No, not Travis Kelce, not Taylor Swift. Adam Sandler, the dude who officiated their wedding. There's been a lot of discussion in the O'Gara household about why Adam Sandler was the choice for this. Because in many ways, it's pretty random. And then the more the guest list came out, the more it actually seemed really appropriate that Adam Sandler was the officiant for this very noteworthy wedding at Madison Square Garden.
Easy answer, Connor. He was the one celebrity they both knew.
Not quite. Apparently, like, they both had a movie that they liked, an Adam Sandler movie that they liked. Happy Gilmore 2, Travis Kelce, Adam Sandler working together. My theory was this. If you're going to go random and just, hey, we're going to make sure that anyone who's somewhat famous is at this wedding, and you just have your pick of anyone, and you don't want to make this like some super sentimental thing and whatnot, Adam Sandler's a great choice. He actually is. Okay. So there's that part of this. And Adam Sandler needs to be mentioned for an all-time, like who would be, your dream golf foursome. Getting to golf with Happy Gilmore, of course. Why needs to be part of those discussions. But I have a theory that because Travis Kelce is now getting involved in the movies and stuff like that, I think he's going to be in like every Adam Sandler movie from now on. Adam Sandler has his guys. Rob Schneider and David Spade have made a career off of it. All right. And he's just going to be one of Sandler's guys now moving forward. And so I think those two guys have probably hit it off a little bit. The theory that I've also seen, I think it was part of my take that was talking about this, like the one thing that Travis got to pick was the officiant. He's like, Adam Sandler, that makes sense for a millennial to pick him, but why wouldn't they? So like, there's that. And the fact that Adam Sandler was just doing the most Adam Sandler thing possible of playing pickup basketball in New York hours before this wedding is just very on brand. And I just think that he deserves to be mentioned in this everlasting question of who would you trade places with for a day? Last 30 years, man. Adam Sandler, top five, maybe exclude athletes, stuff like that. But what a life, man. What a life Adam Sandler has lived. And the fact that he got to be the officiant at this wedding is just absolutely crazy.
You know what? If I could just save one celebrity from being problematic, I think it would be like if I found out something bad about Adam Sandler, I might just openly weep, because like that's one of my few guys. I'm like, wow, I think you're so funny and wholesome. And again, I'm not going to Google it because I don't know, but yeah, he just seems to be an awesome dude. Seems to have put his friends on. I mean, would you rather be friends with Adam Sandler or a Saban assistant? Feels like you could just get jobs for the rest of your life either way. But that the guy's done it the right way. He's had fun. It feels like every movie is like some kind of like boys trip, bachelor party thing that's like, we'll be home by 8 at this point in his career. He's really living the dude dream where he's like kind of still going, making like good stuff, like kind of reliving, or like he'll drop like an Uncut Gems every once in a while. We're like, okay, guy still got it,
What was the oh gosh, what was the basketball movie he did?
Yep. That I quickly cycled Uncut Gems because I couldn't think of the name of that one, but that was also very good. Yes.
Yeah, with like the 6'10" European guy who came over. That was actually good.
That was really good. Yeah.
It's bothering me that I'm blanking on the name of that. Somebody knows it. But yeah, what a good life Adam Sandler has lived. And when he writes his tell-all memoir, maybe he can violate the NDAs that certainly many people at this wedding signed and tell us about how in the world he got selected to do this. It just seems so random, but
why not? Are you who's anti Adam Sandler? Because like, if I could get one, that's a great person to officiate my wedding.
Yes, he would do a tremendous job. There's no doubt in my mind. People overthink that often. And in reality, just get a point guard. Get a point guard, get someone that can tell some lighthearted jokes. I would have loved to have heard the jokes that he was popping. And not just because it was like this wedding, but like if he was making jokes at their expense, like what were they? That'd be fun to hear.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can't go like Shane Gillis. Like people are like, oh, I want like the funniest. No, you don't. You don't want to get upstairs that you're going to. Yeah. So like, yeah.
Shane Gillis, Kevin Hart, probably not going to be the best. Maybe make it a little bit too much about that. I feel like Sandler's got enough self-awareness to at least be like, all right, I've had my fun.
You know who would rock that? Eddie Murphy would be another good one.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Okay. So my lad of the week, this is kind of a tongue-in-cheek one here. It is Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark. Now, he's a guy who I've talked about a decent amount because he's actually kind of quietly been an innovator within the college sports space. He's like really leading into how can we kind of brand our conference like a weird tech company that we're just selling product. You know, he's been like, we are the best basketball conference. We got this going on. Look at this. It's all like kind of like smoke and mirrors, but it's kept them as the third viable conference, like pretty clearly. And boy, howdy did he have a rough week this week. Boy, howdy did he have a rough week. It was media days. It's kind of like actively going on, and you know they had Texas Tech in there yesterday, and of course it's media days, so like the media is supposed to ask questions. So I'm gonna start with the Swordsby stuff. He was just kind of straight up like, I've talked about this enough, guys. Which
it's like, this isn't the place to discuss this.
My brother,
where do you think is the place to discuss this? Because this pretty big topic of conversation, I would say no.
It's kind of the only place someone could actually ask you this question, but I kind of do get it from his perspective because that's a coward move. Like I think that's a coward move no matter what. But he is probably so like he's had to handle like everybody being mad about this. I'm sure the conference is threatened to break apart. I'm sure there's a lot happening behind closed doors. So whatever. Okay, that was not great. This Monster energy drink sponsorship is like sending me, bro. Like the fact that they're like, this is a classic Brett Yormark too, where it's like massive name brand you've heard. It's like $20 million. It's like, oh my God, $20 million per team. Oh my God, that's so much money. It's like, no, $20 million per university. That is like a kind of a backup wide receiver type guy.
Yeah, look, you got to find creative ways in this day and age. And if that means circling back to a company that had its heyday 15 to 20 years ago, then by all means, you have to do it and get creative. I think we should refer to the Big 12 no longer as America's conference, but truly as the Monster Energy Big 12 conference.
I actually kind of love that. I kind of want to call it the Monster Energy Big 12 conference from now on because that's so funny. And it's one of those that's like so beyond the pale of like weird stuff that it's actually kind of funny. It's like the Duke, Mayo Bowl and everything. And so, yeah, like that was actually such a funny because I literally saw people on Twitter being like, this is stupid. And then people are like, do you not want the $1 million? And it's like so funny that this is all happening in real time where it's like, dude, again, it's do you want to sell your sponsorship to Palantir or some company you've never heard of and get more money, or do you want to have the name brand recognition? And the Big 12 has consistently been like, we're going to do the weird thing where we're going to get the name brand recognition. So that's point number 2. Point number 3, and my main point here, I'm sure you see the question with this gentleman, Sean Dillon,
Texas Tech media member who asked a very long-winded question that I don't think he ever got to the punchline, but it more or less, for those who haven't seen this, was, why do you hate Texas Tech, Brett Yormark? Please tell me why. And then Brett Yormark, like walking the stage and being like, I'm going to stand over here. Like, I'm going to ask you to stand up and ask me that question. I respect Brett Yormark for his response. I'll be honest.
He kind of cooked that guy, like low key, at a time where like there's not really a right thing to say. If you think that Texas Tech reporter, please go listen to the question. I couldn't even reenact the awkwardness of this question. And I'm going to add that to the back of my mind repertoire. If I remember some type of a commissioner where it's like, no, stand up and tell me that again. Because the dude said it so scared. Like you could tell he like rehearsed it. And as soon as he went to go say it,
it's written on the computer right there too. Like it's like, okay, I will defend reporters who sometimes, like if you're in these situations and you've got a microphone in front of your hand. You're literally in a stadium type atmosphere. There's a lot of people there, and you're on television. You get your chance to be able to ask that question. Your heart rate starts going. All right. And if you have your question written down on the computer, okay, that's fine. When it's that long and that, how do we say this kindly? Off the reservation?
It was one of the worst questions I've ever, he said he said tortillo. And he was like, basically the heart of his question was, well, he stammered like 1,000 times the first time. And he kind of warm up game to a little preseason to do it the first time. He was like, hey, question, if OSU is allowed to do this, but we can't throw tortillos, one of these on the field, like, why can we do this? And then also this happened with Sorsby, and how come you're not prosecuting him from Cincinnati's perspective? And so anyway, so Yormark is like, go ahead, stand up and say that again. And the way he ends the question, which is, this is such a baller move by Yormark. He ends the question of, you said that it's 12 forward, and how can we feel like we're included? And Yormark just goes, after he says it the second time, labors equally as much. He goes, yeah, that's actually not our slogan this year. It's 16 strong. Have a great day. It was like he made this dude talk for 2 straight minutes, and it was just like, and bleep you, I'm out of here.
I respect it. And it's a reminder, asking questions is probably, it's like eating spicy food. You can watch someone else do it and you can think it's easy. And then you get up there and you realize, it's actually kind of tough. It's kind of tough to come out clean. And very rarely does a reporter actually look good asking a question. I mean, those instances are never shown because it's very insignificant. And I think that if you're in that spot, like, you're very specifically just trying to get that answer to get your own fan base going of like, see, Brett Yormark hates Texas Tech, and look what he did by, like, punishing Texas Tech. He didn't punish Cincinnati or Oklahoma State. Like, this isn't 16 strong. You're going too far. But media day season, full effect. Love that the Big 12 players are all in full pads. Loved seeing DJ Lagway in full pads. If he was in full pads throughout last offseason, I think he would have stayed healthy. That was I saw a quote that was like, hey, Dave Aranda might be on the hot seat, but at least everybody knows it's not DJ Lagway's fault if it goes wrong. Like, it's like actually a similar but very different situation, which I think is a great way to phrase it. It's like, I was going to blame him this year. It's probably going to be more to Aranda than it was on Lagway last year. But yeah, it's just quick thing. We've talked about this a little bit. I've gotten roasted by George O'Leary and Scott Skiles and guys in Orlando when I was coming up. So I get it. If you ever fight, it was terrible. I tried to ask easy questions and couldn't get them out. So, but granted, I was like 20 years old. But that being said, if you're ever in that situation, the simpler the question, the better. And if you feel yourself going into a soliloquy, it's probably going to go poorly for you because that requires them to kind of play along with you, and they're kind of got to figure you out pretty quickly. So if you get scared, it is scary. Don't really judge anyone unless they do something this egregious. But if you get scared, just ask, how can we take you seriously after what happened this year, and sit down. At least just say it with your chest. It's a tough thing to process. Oh, I saw you on TV. How you doing, fella? You okay? Rough. Any day. Anyway, can't wait for media days coming up in a couple of weeks here. We are going to be in Tampa. That is the plan, and we will have tons of coverage from there. We have one more pod before that. Very special guest coming up next week. I haven't even told you who this guest is yet, Will. Someone who has been on the show before, has not been on in a while, but I'm very, very excited about. So be on the lookout for that. Please leave us a 5-star review. Subscribe to The Next Round on YouTube, where you can find all of our content. Follow us on Twitter @CJ O'Gara, @GoSoHard. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.